Hey, what's going on, everybody? Welcome to the Former Nice Guys podcast. Before we get started, I want to let you know that you can support the show by going over to jcramergraphics.com and picking up an item. We also do discounts for group orders, so if you're looking, your unit, your business, whatever, is looking to do a large purchase, reach out and I'll send you a discount code. That allows you to also let everyone order individually. That way you're not stuck like collecting money, making rosters for sizes, colors, and all the other stuff. You know, that's the worst part about it. I remember doing it when I was in. Also, we offer free shipping on orders of $75 or more. And as always, if you're looking for a custom design for your unit, then reach out and we can facilitate that as well. So again, support the show. Go over to jcramergraphics.com. And let's get to it. All right, I'm just like running through my head. I'm like looking at my stuff and making sure everything's plugged in. And, you know, I'm sure you guys have experienced technical issues as you're recording.
Most of, like half the time.
Like whole videos get ruined for various reasons.
People don't know until they start recording a podcast how much of a pain in the ass it is to record a podcast and how much work. I've lost entire interviews. I've done an interview with someone and then realized afterwards that it wasn't recording. And I'm like, oh my God, I'm so sorry. And then have to like completely redo it.
And it's just you're doing it yourself. You don't have an engineer. You don't have an employee that's responsible for that. You know, that's like they're trained in it and stuff. You could. That's a real job, like being an engineer for podcasts or any of that stuff.
Yeah. This actually a couple days ago, I'm going to start doing, or I'm going to try to start doing like a phone-in show. I'm not going to put the name out there yet, but I'm figuring out how to take live phone calls and record it all and try to do all of it myself. You know what I'm saying? I'm using like a Google Voice phone number, which makes it a little easier, but go ahead.
I don't know how. So I watch a lot of like debate stuff online, and they have cracked the code on the call-ins. Like they have high quality call-ins that people from, they'll do like a debate and then they'll open it up to people that just like pay a super chat to come on and like give a question or something. But sometimes they video them in, but a lot of times it's like a call, like a radio show. So I'll send you some links to the ones that I think are doing it right, and you can maybe figure out from them. But it's definitely like a lot of people are doing the call-in thing. Like I think it's a good idea. Yeah, so it gives people an opportunity to participate. You know,
exactly. So for the people watching this, hopefully that'll be coming out here pretty soon. I'd like to do it weekly. You know, at least do 30 minutes to an hour. Maybe it'll go longer. The first few are going to be a shit show because it's going to be me trying to figure out how to do it, how to take calls, how to do calls, like, you know, and then you're going to have idiots calling in and stuff like that too. So it would definitely be easier if I had another person.
Well, you could, so, you know, if you found somebody like one of your fans or something that was willing, that other person doesn't have to be co-located with you to be your call screener, because if you use like StreamYard or something like that, you put them in a lobby and then your call screener, or you do it on Discord. This is just all what I observed from the debate dorkery that I'm in. Like, I'm watching like philosophy debates, like
that's
4 nights a week, like a loser.
Straight C lawyer.
But like, they'll have a StreamYard or some other software type thing, or they'll do it in their Discord. So they're live on YouTube, they're running a Discord, their mods are moderating the Discord, and then they're pulling guys from the Discord. They'll be like, hey, dude, this guy Tim has a real good question, you know, related to the topic. Boom, Tim comes on, here it is, and they give the question. Then they're pulling them from the lobby in the Discord.
I've heard
now in the Discord, while the show's going, they're in there talking. You can't hear it on the show, but they're in there chatting and talking and having a whole kind of exchange in the Discord.
I actually started a Former Action Guys Discord like a year and a half, 2 years ago, maybe longer. I don't even remember, but I don't ever get on there because I don't mess with it. But I did read something about that.
Weird, yeah. It's weird. Discord, like, it's confusing to me. I haven't figured out how, because I got on Discord to try to do Mid-Journey shit.
Yeah, we've got changed by the hour.
Yeah, we have.
Oh yeah, Mid-Journey. I used to use Mid-Journey for the AI art.
Yeah. Yep.
It's real hit and miss.
I just messed with it. Yeah, I was into it when it first came out, just because I was like fascinated by it. I'm like, damn, I can just like type shit and make pictures. It's crazy.
Yeah, but I've found myself when I was using it, it was like I was I never got exactly what I wanted.
Right.
It's so people will think that like, oh, I can just do this and make t-shirts, or I can do this and do graphic design.
No. Because it can't do like letters and stuff like accurately.
It gives you a general idea. I've told people that use it or that have considered using it for graphic design or whatever. I'm like, use it to make like individual aspects. Like, hey, I need to do something that has a skull and crossbones or something like that. Well, I'll have it generate skull and crossbones, and then I'll do the rest of the work. I'll do like the text and the circle and, you know, all the different objects in the image and stuff like that. So that is good, but you can't. It's not really good for one-off like in state, like the photos ready to print or something like that. I actually canceled my Midjourney last year, I think, and I was like, I'm just going to use ChatGPT, because if the paid version of ChatGPT does artwork as well. And I use Adobe products as well for like all my graphic design and for my video editing and stuff for the podcast. And there's an AI part of Photoshop now too, but it's still, none of it's really that like great. Like you're not getting what you want on your first go most of the time, but it's a weird world. We're moving in that direction, you know?
It's not good.
So Aren, Cody, I want to have you guys on. You guys want to kind of maybe give yourself a quick intro and tell people about your podcast before we get going?
Yeah, sure.
Yeah, so I'll go first. I guess my name's Cody Anderson, and this is the Former Action Guys podcast. So what makes me a former action guy is I joined the Marines in 1998. I was an infantry guy first. You can catch up on the deep dive of this on one of Justin's earlier shows. And basically, long story short, is I ended up helping to start MARSOC with this guy here. So I ended up behind the fence in MARSOC a total of about 16 years between active duty and contracting time. And 2021 started farming. Started to wrap all that up and start building a homestead. You know, there were several things that kind of happened during that time, and some wild stuff that was going on in the world that made me think that resiliency was of prime importance in my life.
Yeah.
Yep. My name's Aren Brandfass. I was on a couple episodes of the Former Action Guys, so you can go check out my career. But basically, retired Marine. I know Cody from MARSOC and from contracting, and I would say our show kind of started out as mostly like we were interested in, you know, conspiracy, esoteric stuff. Like, you know, like where'd the pyramids come from, that type of stuff. And it kind of evolved just because we started, you know, right when COVID kicked off. So couldn't help but talk about all the weirdness surrounding COVID, which leads into kind of like a unorthodox perspective on politics and, you know, the government and things like that. And I'd say the tone and tenor of our show as of late is like we've kind of gone through this whole confrontation of what our government uses the military for, what our role was in the global war on terror, like how that, you know, what was our role in all that, and how to deal with the fact that we now kind of both conceive of that whole time and those wars as being completely illegal, immoral, unethical, and unnecessary. And how that's still okay, because you know, like I was having a blast, so like that's kind of how I but that's kind of like what our show just kind of confronts those things. And you know, like you know, obviously a lot of veterans listen to your show, so just try to take the kind of stuff we say with a grain of salt. We don't hate the country, we don't hate the people in the country, but a lot of times if this is the first time people are hearing some of the stuff we say, it's like, damn. I was thinking about this just real quick, and then I'll shut up. But like, we're the three of us, and a lot of people that listen to your show are in a unique position because, like, new wars are on the horizon, right? New young people are, you know, gonna look at the opportunities that the military presents, or feel some patriotic duty to go kill Russians or Iranians or Chinese people or whatever. We're in a unique position of having done all that stuff. So it's like you can't accuse us of being pussies. Like you can't say, "Oh, these guys are anti-war because they don't have the stones to go, you know, fight." And it's like that's not true.
It's incorrect.
You'd have to work pretty hard to find a couple people with more time doing that thing. So we're in a unique position to challenge that and be like, "Hey, look, you're gonna march a bunch of, you know, high school wrestlers and farm boys from Kansas off to their doom again for what? Let's make sure, you know, it's worthwhile." So all right, I'll shut up.
And I'll just kind of clean that up on the last part with our podcast is I think the thing that kind of makes us interesting is that around 2016 timeframe, going into 2017, I'd say heavily, we really went down the rabbit hole in our old military job of psychological operations, information operations, military deception. You know, we kind of both ended our stint at MARSOC within the G39, which the 39 is your information operations directorate of your operations. So, you know, during the lockdowns of 2020, whenever the hell that was, right? 2020.
Yeah,
anyway,
2021.
Yeah, you know, we both just kind of found ourselves in a room together, and we just started looking, you know, in the office. You know, you're just like not really, you know, missions have sort of died down during that time, so you just have time to just sort of like look at what people are saying and then run it through what we would typically use as a planning process for an information operation. You know, we would just look to see, is there a deception target? Is there rhetoric? Can we see conduits all putting out the same information, right? Like it's almost like so we just started looking at it like that. And that's really what we brought to Stranger by the Hour, is the fact that, we are both trained military deception personnel.
Mm-hmm.
So when we're looking at these things, we're like, yo, man, if I was writing a mission, that's the way it would look right there. And this is the reason why. And this is probably what they're trying to say. Like, I could be wrong.
Did you see there was today New York Times released an op-ed saying that they were deceived by the government and that it does look like that the coronavirus started in a lab and all this other stuff. Like basically admitting that everyone that they called conspiracy theorists for years was correct.
A quick note about the New York Times. Okay, so of course the New York Times is a privately owned company. It's owned by, I can't remember the name of the family that's historically owned it, but this is a privately owned enterprise that is in a private public partnership with the U.S. government. So the function of the New York Times is for the establishment, and people need to kind of get out of this left-right, Republican, Democrat binary that's synthetic. Okay, so both sides, so the neocon, the neoliberal neocon global order, the people that the Victoria Newlands of the world that go out and make sure that we have a war in Ukraine to go fight and things like that. The New York Times is a signal producing entity that like that's how they know what their worldview needs to be, like, because there's not like there's people in meetings, in rooms having meetings, and they send out an email and everybody gets their marching orders. They get their marching orders from the New York Times. The articles in the New York Times inform these people of what the establishment, political orthodoxy has to think about XYZ issue. That's the purpose of the New York Times. Now, it's lost a lot of its power because the things that it was saying are so obviously fallacious and wrong that people can't help but notice. So like their power's draining. So now they're doing this cleanup, like, they tricked us about the COVID. Like, you can trust us. Like, geez, I sure wish I didn't get 6 boosters. I wish, oh shucks, they lied. Like, no, you lied. You knew and you lied. You're a conduit for their propaganda and their nonsense.
At least responsible for not fact-checking their information.
Right, yeah.
I mean, people think that places like North Korea are the only places that are continuously propagandized by their leadership just because they see, like, there's a loudspeaker on the corner playing the great leader's message at all times. It's like, well, we have a CNN on every single TV in the airport constantly putting out the official narrative. And rags, like Aren just said, like that. These things might as well be leaflet drops. I mean, they're not dropping them from a helicopter with the party's information. They're making you buy the party's information.
Especially, real quick, especially overseas. I think people don't realize when they see that, like, they talk about overseas, like, oh, this country, like, the people can't believe what's happening in the U.S. or the citizens, I can't believe that these things are occurring. How could they elect Donald Trump? How could they do these things? And I'm like, you got to realize that the people overseas are seeing a very narrow spectrum of the news, and it's mostly like CNN or like New York Times, and that's just not an accurate portrayal of what's actually happening in America.
Well, and the other thing people overseas are seeing is our celebrity culture is stared at and worshipped by people all over the world. So our celebrities are conduits for this propaganda. So your George Clooney's, your Sean Penn's, every loud, liberal Hollywood person. So case in point, they got to sell the Ukraine thing. They got to sell us hundreds of $1 billion of stuff going to Ukraine. They got to get the American people behind that whole enterprise. So they send Sean Penn over there. They send Ben Stiller over there. They send, so just again, we've said this 100 times on our show, but they send the actor Ben Stiller to go to Ukraine to meet with the actor named Zelensky, who's his last job before he was president of Ukraine was to play the president of Ukraine on a comedic show on Ukrainian television.
Like
that was the last job that he had before he was the president. Okay, so actor Ben Stiller goes to shake hands and yuck it up with actor Zelensky, and while
Sean
the cameras
Penn brings him an Oscar.
Sean Penn brought him an Oscar and handed it to him. Like, people, like, all the signals that you need to discern reality are right there. And then they oh yeah, go ahead.
I was just gonna say, a funny way to look at that is, Team America is a brilliant movie, with the puppets, and everybody kind of thinks like the the exoteric funny part about Team America is Kim Jong-un or whatever, that little thing. But like the esoteric thing in that movie is that they're sending actors around as essentially as diplomats and spies.
As they're doing diplomacy. They're part of our foreign policy apparatus. And you want some more proof of that? Guys like George Clooney, I say him because he's
list of the Council of he's a member of the
board of the Council of Foreign Relations. So like these people are part of our foreign policy apparatus. Now you've got the Central Intelligence Agency's long-standing relationship with Hollywood. Zero Dark 30 comes out so that the average American or everybody in the Western world has a version of the truth about the capture of bin Laden. So this is how we experience these events that happen in the world that we weren't personally there for. We experience them through these dramatic portrayals. This is how we know how World War II was. It's how we know how they got bin Laden. You know what I mean? They make these things because otherwise people are free to construct their own version of that reality. And they might even construct the true version of that reality, which that's not good. They need to have control over how we see these events because we're not signing up for the next one unless we believe the last one was a good idea.
Who's they though? You keep saying they believe.
So
they want.
I would describe as okay. This is. I apologize.
A fair question.
I apologize in advance for how this is about to
go. This is why, real quick before you start, this is why I wanted to have you guys on here because I love that you guys have an alternative perspective on stuff, and I don't necessarily agree with everything you say, but I also think that it's good to hear, all of it. So that's why I wanted to have this conversation.
Yeah. Let me say one more thing before Aaron cracks off safe. This is the exact conversation we all would have had in the gun truck, though.
For sure.
Like while we're smoking cigarettes, we round up for the night, we're about to go to sleep. We're like in the truck. We'd be like, bro, do you fucking believe? And then somebody like, nah. And you'd be like, oh yeah, but one time. And we would spend hours before we racked out talking just like this, man. Like, all right, fire. All right,
so I'll start with the most insulting thing first, right? the democracy that we believe is our system of government is synthetic. It is the public-facing proxies for a corporation or basically what's that guy call it? A national financial
owners of global capital.
A national owners of global capital. So look, this thing is this idea that U.S. citizens have meaningful access to the levers of power is ridiculous on its face. All you have to do is understand what lobbying is. This is not things that are concealed. This isn't clandestine. It's overt. It's right in front of your face. Bernie Sanders looks like he's going to get the Democratic nomination. Well, he's a Democratic socialist populist. Fuck that. Can't have him. Here comes the Democratic Party to pull a job on Bernie twice in a row. You know what I mean? They're showing you. They don't even conceal it. There is not at the level of national politics. You can go vote your mayor in or whatever, or the county commissioner, but at the level of national politics, you do not have access to the levers of power. You probably shouldn't have access to the levers of power, to be honest with you. Democracy is kind of a bad idea, but that's for another time. But the actual reality is there is a control system in place that is global financial, global capital folks that they don't leave this stuff up to chance. Okay, so these wars, the maintenance of the U.S. dollar as the world reserve currency, the maintenance of the petrodollar requires the use of the U.S. military as its enforcement arm, and they can't leave that shit up to chance. They're not going to allow us to just vote wars on and off. Okay, they're not going to have a democratic process in place for how we use our military. That's just not how it works. So, but they keep the facade going. So that's who the they is. The they is capital. It's money. It's a corporation. Now, I'm not a communist. I'm not anti-capitalist or any of that shit. I'm just describing reality as I understand.
Yeah, from a journalistic standpoint, it's from the movie Network, where that guy is in the boardroom is screaming at the reporter that's like, I'm mad as hell. I'm not going to take it anymore. He's like, hey, buddy, you have upset the powers that be, and the powers that be are the movers of global currency.
And, that's a common thing right now because, we're seeing, we now have billionaires overtly have kind of subsumed control of our government. So people are talking about it the commie lefty types are like, there shouldn't even be billionaires. What do you need all that money for? At a certain point, and they're right, they're not right about that, but I mean, at a certain point, I don't know, once you get north of a couple $100 million, what's the money for? Well, the money is then it's not about buying stuff with the money. It's about manipulating and controlling the entire environment with the money. The whole situation is controlled by money. And once you amass enough of it, you can wield unprecedented power.
And people, I think, are mistaken, just to add like another nail in there, but of thinking that, like, once again, that thinking that they're forward-facing politicians or their interface with the actual government, thinking that people like Bezos and Elon are the richest people in the world is also incorrect. Right?
Yeah, those guys are role players.
In my assessment, the people, your low-key trillionaires, you could probably start to find them, but you have to start to look into the gray areas. You have to start to look at people in the areas that don't see the news every day. Because if you were above the billionaire class, of what use is it to you for the plebes to know who you are? I would start looking at places like any family that's ever had a pope in their lineage that's still a family.
And this is where we get into, look, so I think everything that we just said, I think is provable and demonstratable by like what's publicly available. Like if you can research all that and verify that those things that we were saying are mostly true. Now, where we get into the weeds a little bit is speculating about who, there's these lineage international banking families that have apparently allegedly held power, ever since like the time of Rome. There's a lot of really, people write books about this. It's like a deeply researched subject. I just haven't ever encountered anything where I'm like, that's exactly who it is. It's the Medici family that's controlling, but I do believe that there's a lineage, that there's this power lineage. Like these guys, they shapeshift. They maintain their power by adapting to keep pace with technology, they're adaptive. They shapeshift, as
for example, if I was a tech billionaire who previously was ultra liberal, but now I'm funding the ultra right. That's what he means by shapeshift. We're not talking about lizards here. We're talking about people just simply shedding their last persona to become a new one. For example, if I was the Nazi who was in charge of building the V2 rocket, which rained horror over Europe, and that's not a good shape, right, for me to move on in, I just become Werner von Braun. The head of NASA. I just start working and making Disney cartoons. And then, I've shapeshifted. I'm no longer a Nazi war criminal convicted of mass murder. Now I'm the head of NASA's rocket program. That's shapeshifting.
Which when you know about how World War I and World War II was financed, that starts to seem reasonable, because you're like, yeah, look, these people at our level, it's nation state against nation state. At their level, they're financing both sides of a conflict and profiting off it. This is the Rothschilds banking family. They started this racket when they had advanced knowledge of the outcome of the Battle of Waterloo, and they told who did they tell?
They did a rug pull, man.
They did it. They rug pulled the French. Yeah. They rug pulled Waterloo, and they
rug pulled England.
Yeah, they rug pulled England over Waterloo. And it made their fortune instantly, and then they were off to the races.
Yeah, everybody thought that the English Empire was about to collapse, so they sold all their stock immediately.
But I mean, like the Rothschilds, ostensibly Jewish people, via their Warburg banking concern, financed the Germans in World War I. World War I would not have been possible without financing from the Rothschild banking concern via the Warburg.
Henry Ford, a great supporter of the Nazi cause.
The Bush family.
Prescott Bush was in trouble for using his bank as a Nazi slush fund.
Which sounds crazy, but we're not saying
this
is true.
I'm not saying that these people are Nazis. I'm saying they don't give a fuck about the they don't care about the pageantry.
That's it.
The pageantry is for us. All right, cool. I know YouTube is like firing at that. Like,
dude, if YouTube hasn't demonetized us for everything up to this point, I think we're good.
Yeah, I think you made it 200. You're good.
Sorry, dude.
No, but you're right. Like, those things are. We're not saying that. These things aren't real. Like, it's very real to have. The German. The Axis versus the Allies really happened. That was really real. But there's a level of. There's a strata of there's a class or control strata or whatever for which they're above it. They're not subject to that. It's like plebeian. Same thing with morality. Like these people, we have like a plebeian kind of Christian based morality that these people don't They're not constrained by that. That's why that's like the other thing the people got to get through their head. We apply it doesn't matter if you're a Christian or what kind of person you are. We all kind of behave, less lately, because we're becoming completely degenerate. But like generally, we have this morality. Like you don't murder, you don't steal, you don't people. You don't do all this shit. That's our constraint. Like, these people don't operate under that constraint. It's like obvious, like the Epstein stuff. Like these people are disgusting. Like. The reason it's a matter of national security and old Pam Bondi can't give out the binders or whatever.
What's that national security, Pam?
Yeah, because the people that are in charge of our country are disgusting, degenerate criminals. They're horrible.
I'm wondering with the Pam Bondi stuff, I'm wondering what is there left to uncover. I mean, I don't know. I'll be honest, I haven't really looked that much into it, but it seems like even before Trump came into office, there was a bunch of stuff that had been released. Like there's a lot of names that have been released. I think some of the specifics that haven't been released are some of the girls' names, which I understand that, I suppose. But
I think if there's something in, first of all, let's just admit it's okay. So let's get this straight. Let's go from our perspective that we think that members of our government and possibly other foreign government or governments were using the Epstein thing as a way to do sexual blackmail to exercise control over people. Okay. That's what we think, right? So wait, these people were willing to do that, yet they left a bunch of paperwork evidence that exists. Like, okay, the FBI is now going to play by the rules and be like, well, the thing says don't destroy.
Sorry.
Like, what are we talking about here? They got into the prison that Jeffrey Epstein was in and killed him, but they're going to leave. There's no incriminating evidence. They're just
no. The guards fell asleep. The cameras were off.
Right.
Stop.
I mean, what do we like? We're getting strung along here like foolish little children. Like, why would they leave that part of the job undone? Like they're gonna do all this horrible, like stuff that people consider the worst shit you can do. Like, like trade children away to disgusting, powerful people so you can play. Like this is like, right? So like they're gonna do all that, but they're gonna leave like a paper trail that we can look at in binders. They're gonna have these like dumb right-wing influencers come skipping out of the White House with a fucking binder.
That was so
it's
stupid.
absurd. It's absurd.
I had you may know who I'm talking about, a guy named Andrew Bustamante on, who's the
CIA,
the former
guy.
CIA guy. And I asked him, I was like, we talk about how all these other countries do all these horrible things and stuff like that, but we're also doing like some of these things as well. And, I was like, what do you think about, how do you square that morally? And he was like, hey, you have to be willing to do what your enemy will do to get things done. And I was like, that's kind of fucked up.
Yeah.
I mean, I get to a point, some stuff, but how deep does that go? So it kind of feeds into what you've been saying, right? That there's
at the end, what makes us different.
Yeah. I mean, I definitely. So we've talked about a lot, or you guys have gone through a lot so far. Let me go through a couple things I was thinking while you guys were talking. One, like the New York Times, CNN, well, not CNN, New York Times, I will say that some of their journalists are good. Some of their non-political reporting is good. Like they spend money on good investigative journalism on things. I don't read them if it has anything to do with politics. Just like I wouldn't listen to Fox News if it had anything to do with politics, because the bias is obvious, right? So that's one thing. The second thing I was thinking, there are influences out there for all kinds of things to get people to do stuff, to make world events happen, to make world events not happen. At what level is that? At what level is that control real? And to me, like, I really think back to the like CNN and Fox and New York Times and all that. They have really lost they've really lost their grip on any kind of like power of holding the information because of like podcast. The internet really just kind of trashed them. You know what I'm saying? Because especially after COVID and everything, like you guys mentioned before, how there was there's some stuff in there that happened that was just so absolutely asinine that anybody with common sense looks at it and they're like, what are you talking about? That makes zero sense. We have to get every kid, vaccinated. Why? There was like less than 500 kids that died, and everyone that died had other issues. Like they were terminal cancer, or they were, it was like
the why is because they want to kill your kids. But okay, go ahead.
Yeah, right. I get the money behind it. I get, So lately, what has been bothering me is the whole Ukraine thing, obviously, which a lot of people have an opinion about. And when Russia initially invaded Ukraine, I was like, fuck Russia, fuck Putin. I even sold T-shirts on my website that said "fuck Putin." You know what I'm saying? Like literally had within a day.
Let's walk through it slower. Like just because. So you said "fuck Putin" just because of the invasion, like that act alone, or were you already predisposed to see Putin a certain way? I'm asking curious.
Well, I mean, I already had obviously a negative viewpoint on Putin, but I think that act alone, I was like, "Fuck this guy."
Hold on, you say obviously, so it's not obvious to me. So why? Like, I'm just trying to pull apart. Like you start. I agree that invading Ukraine is an aggressive act, and if I was a Ukrainian man, I would. Yeah. There's no way I wouldn't be in a trench killing Russians. Like, no doubt about that. Ukraine had absolutely no choice but to do what to wage war, to ask for our help, to ask for NATO's help. No beef against Ukraine at all. I'm wondering, like, what got you predisposed to feel a certain way about Putin?
Well, to me, it's just been kind of like a ongoing thing. I remember the first time I even really thought about post-Soviet Russia or whatever. While I was in the Marines, I went to Iraq in 2009. And when I deployed, at the time, I was a mechanic. And we had some reserve mechanics that were attached to us for that deployment. And I remember talking to one of the guys, and one of the dudes was on his, how reservists have a weird, for those that don't know, reservists have a weird kind of like enlistment. Like, those guys do 1 weekend a month, 2 weeks of the year, that kind of deal. But they can also go on all these like weird IA, individual augment like deployments. And this guy had gone.
They can basically be active duty all they want.
Yeah, but they go to weird places that active duty guys never go. Like, this dude was in Georgia, the country of Georgia, helping them with their military equipment, like working on their military equipment when Russia invaded Georgia. And that was in 2008. Yep. And I remember him telling me about, he was like, yeah, I remember being there, and then like jets, these Russian jets are flying over and shit. And I was like, damn, that's crazy, So I guess it's between that, Crimea, and then obviously Ukraine. It's kind of like, what are these guys doing? I will say the U.S. doesn't have a big place in the world to talk anything, because we have started obviously multiple wars, but we are not trying to take over Iraq. We're not trying to take it over and that be, that's not our country. Afghanistan, we didn't try to take it over and that's now our country. We may have tried to like get some resources as payment for being in those areas, but we weren't trying to like, what Trump's fucking doing now, talking about Canada being the 51st state kind of deal.
Yeah, we're a little more soft-gloved in that respect. I mean, I would say that we didn't take them over, or we didn't try to take, or we didn't take them over, be slightly inaccurate. We're just not as overt.
Yeah,
we certainly handpicked everybody in any piece of leadership in Iraq.
Plus, taking the United States out of it for just a minute, even though you can't really separate the United States from what happened in the Ukraine because of what our State Department did to kind of provoke and precipitate all that stuff. Like, you can watch videos of Lindsey Graham and a couple of the other dickheads in 2014, after the whole thing that happened in 2014. They were standing there promising the military leadership of Ukraine that the United States and Ukraine would be in an armed conflict with Russia Trump fucked the whole thing up. It was supposed to be by 2016. Like, you can watch Lindsey Graham tell this to these people, but that's like just a couple things.
New opinion.
Just on Putin real quick. Like, and again, I'm not like an apologist for Putin. It's not like I am pro-Russian. I'm just trying to. It's like so much of this propaganda goes one way from our media, both left and right side of our media, and basically it's all kind of one mind. But like a couple of interesting things, like Putin. Putin's parliament demand the invasion of Ukraine, the one that just happened, not the incursion in 2014, was a result of a parliamentary decision that Putin was against. Putin had been putting these people off for a while, because since 2014, it's like how many people? I think 14,000 Russian separatists have been killed in the Donbass region prior to the most recent conflict. So Putin's dealing with 14,000 of his Russian citizens being killed in artillery strikes and rocket attacks in this part of the Ukraine. It was previously, that the people that live there consider themselves ethnically Russian. Many of them immigrated to that area from Russia. Like, these people that live in that area consider themselves Russian, and they're having a beef with Ukraine. And specifically these Azov, like neo-Nazi, these guys that they worship this guy Banderas, which is like an SS, World War II SS guy. Like, these guys we hand wave away this like Ukrainian Nazi thing. Now, one thing is true: most of those guys are now dead. Okay, so these original Azov battalion guys that are like Nazi, like tattoos, the people in the towns that support them are waving SS banners and shit. It's not like they're
That's
like
no
casually.
secret, yeah.
It's not like there's like 6 of them were into Nazi shit. No, this is like what it was. Right?
It was an entire battalion, and it is something that was like basic in our media, has briefly been touched on and kind of like, no big deal. You're right on all that.
And it's totally inconvenient because Putin is Hitler. In our little like Marvel Cinematic Universe of geopolitics, no, Putin is Hitler. We have to see Putin as Hitler.
Where did this 14,000 people getting killed in Donbass before? Where did that number come from? So there was you're saying prior to the invasion of Russia invading Ukraine, that Ukraine was shooting artillery and rockets into the Donbass area.
1,000%.
That is correct.
1,000%.
Okay, I actually have never heard that.
Yeah, that is the case. So Putin's responding to pressure from his own parliament to take care of this. And then he's also like, we're busy encroaching, like we're doing this encirclement, adding countries to NATO. Like, the purpose of NATO, was for the Cold War. So as soon as the Soviet Union dissolved, NATO ostensibly could have dissolved. But then we had the Minsk Accords saying, all right, hey, look, we're gonna do this nuclear disarmament. We're gonna have Ukraine give up their nukes. We're gonna promise no official like paperwork signed, but like handshake deals saying, we're not one more inch closer to Russia with our bullshit.
We're not going east. You're not going west.
That's right. And these things were violated. So it's, again, do I think any of that excuses Putin for invading? No. Do I think Putin's a good guy? No. Do I give a fuck about Putin? No. I'm just pushing back against this deluge of propaganda that is not 100% accurate.
Yeah. No, I understand that. I understand that. And I will say that I'm the same way. I don't really care about either country at this point. You know what I'm saying? Like, I was all for the support. I'm all for, hey, they want to go and fight and stuff. But there's a lot of people out there that it's like, we have to keep supplying them. We have to keep pushing this. We have to keep it going. And it's like, dude, hundreds of people are dying every day. Thousands of people are dying every week for what? You know what I'm saying? And the only way Ukraine, and people that it kills me because you ask people, you're like, what would the end state you'd want to see? And they're like, well, Ukraine gets all their land back. And it's like, okay, well, that's not going to happen. The reality is the only way that could ever happen is if NATO and other European countries send in ground troops, because Ukraine does not have enough people. It's a manpower issue. It doesn't matter how much ammo, technology, all that stuff we send them. They don't have enough people to fight. That's just how it is. And I don't think that we should be getting involved in that. Again, I was totally fine with us supplying them with arms and stuff like that, helping them defend themselves. But I am not going to be on board with something that leads us into U.S. ground troops, fucking in the trenches fighting these guys. I just don't.
Well,
and the people that are advocating for that are the people that would never sign up to go do that. And that's why every time I'm online and I'm like debating somebody online or something like that, which I should not do, I always send them the link to the Ukraine Foreign Legion sign up page. Like, if you're that dedicated, bro, here's the fucking thing. Go sign up, because they don't need more F-16s. They need more bodies on the ground. F-16s are nice, but...
Yeah. So I just saw an after-action report written by some British officers that had been at the company level fighting in Ukraine. And it was on the Green Line, so it is what it is. I think it was like labeled UK sensitive or some shit. Who gives a fuck? So basically, they were given an after action, and they were saying this is like what we wish we would have known like 3 years ago, And one of the things that they were saying was that they were ill prepared to fight the way the Russians were fighting now. They They weren't expecting that. So essentially, the Russian doctrine, to be extraordinarily simple, is they only do maneuver to bring up fires. So we're only pushing our maneuver elements forward in ground assaults so we can buy more terrain to bring the big guns forward. And so essentially what they do is they just encircle pockets of Ukrainians and just dump artillery shells on them. We're talking about like millions and millions of rounds of artillery shells. And in this AAR, there's pictures of like the redoubts and the dugouts that the Ukrainians have built in defense. And these commanders like, look, be prepared to live underground. Be prepared to dig. Be prepared to like dig in and keep digging and stay digging. Like they were saying shit like, hey, stop practicing firing your rifle, because almost none of these casualties are coming from like close combat with rifles, right? It's drones and artillery.
Yeah.
And after that is like mines, and like, so I'm reading through this, and I just know how our military operates. I know how the brass operates in particular, and I know what they are resistant to change to their own detriment. And so I'm kind of like thinking in my head, like, how are they even basically, I'm just trying to reinforce your point. Like, we have no business in a ground war in Asia, in either theater, whether that's Eurasia or actual Asia, because I think they were hiding the numbers until just recently. I did a little open search a bit ago, and it was like, oh, the Ukraine's lost like 40,000 and the Russians have lost like 80,000.
No, it's hundreds. It's like 700,000.
Dude, it's like 800,000 on the Russian side and 1 million on the Ukrainian side is the open source numbers now.
Let's just think about that for a second.
Like, so they got to be higher. They're both lying. They got to be higher.
Bro, we lost like 7,000 in the GWAT and we get sad about it.
Do we get big sad?
I know, that's what I'm saying. Yeah.
Go fucking smoke themselves over it. It was like 55,000 in Vietnam. Yeah. All right, dude, here's another, just on the topic, right? Let me ask you how you feel about this. Okay, so the justification right from the word jump, just because we're contrarian assholes, like we were against U.S. involvement and support for the Ukraine thing, okay? And we were listening to guys like Colonel McGregor early, and then in short order, we kind of stopped caring about it, but like...
2 points on that. I knew that Ukraine was the most corrupt country in Europe, so I knew that off the top.
You're not allowed to say that anymore. You're not allowed to say that anymore.
Per the State Department.
Yeah, and I was like, so I just came from one of the most corrupt countries, so, Afghanistan. And then the second thing, I was like, well, let me get this straight. Like, this country, Russia, that I grew up to fear. I'm a Red Dawn kid, dude.
Yeah.
Like, I thought I was going to fight the Russians. Like, we spent trillions of dollars against this threat called Russia. They didn't sell all that shit. They still got it.
Well, they never slowed their production of those stuff
so
anyway.
Somebody was going to tell me that, to go back to Justin's point, like a country of like 33 million was going to defeat a country of 138 million. And that was the country that we feared for 20 straight years.
And
like, both things can't be true.
In the early stages of this thing, Putin's stated goal was to come in, push past to the Donbass, and I think the port at Sevastopol, secure the support, because that's where they're like
special
Cold Water Navy is, that right? Yeah. So it was an incursion in the beginning. Now maybe he's lying or whatever, but there was a chance early on. But they used Boris Johnson to talk. Zelensky was going to negotiate. It was going to be an unlimited incursion by Russia. Russia gets up to the Donbass and stops there, and it's like, that's it, right? Now, of course, the Western neoliberal world order is like, no, this is tantamount to him starting to take over all of Europe, freedom, democracy. Like, it just starts with the buzzwords and everything. But a couple of them forgot that they're on a microphone or something, and we're honest about it. But at various times, Lindsey Graham has said this. Adam Schiff has said this, that Kinzinger fucking weirdo has said this. But what we're told, as an American consumer of the media, is the very concepts of freedom and democracy at stake. How can we be the United States if we don't support the freedom-loving people of Ukraine? It's our all this shit, right? But when you ask these disgusting politicians, they say shit like, Lindsey Graham say shit like, hey, we're grinding the Russian military down cheaply for us. Like, this is a good investment. Like, this is about attriting our enemy, Russia. So, and then, various other politicians said the same thing. So how do you feel about that? Like, is that a reasonable thing to do? To use the fighting men of the country of Ukraine to throw them against the Russian military, have them turned into sausage, so that in an effort to attrit our enemy? Is that moral? Is that justifiable? Is that what Americans should be supporting?
I think it's gross, man. I think talk like that is like just, again, these are human beings. You know what I'm saying? Like that's my whole, especially the last 6 months. That's kind of been my whole mindset about the thing is like, I'm just tired of watching people get killed, man. I'm tired of seeing HD video of fucking some dude running from a drone and then getting smacked in the back of the head. Yeah. You know, I'm tired of, it's just, it's disgusting. It's sad for humanity. And I just don't want us to be part of that, you know? And again, at the beginning of the whole thing, I was like, hey man, they're a sovereign country and they should be able to defend themselves, and we should support that. If we want to, then support it. I can agree with that, because if someone invaded us, we would, like you guys mentioned earlier, of course we would go out and fight those people. Of course we're not going to just allow that to happen. But after 3 years and there's not a lot happening. And what people will say too, people will push back and say, well, you know, Putin was never able to succeed in the goals that he wanted. Look how slow his progress has been. Their forward movement has been because of the fight that they've given them, you know, and because of the material that we've provided and stuff like that. And that's cool and all, but after 3 years, we need to be like, listen, we got to stop something. You know what I'm saying? I don't know. It just feels weird that I care more about these like young men that are getting murdered over there than the leaders 100%. Of their own countries do. You know what I'm saying? It's just...
Well, and ultimately, like, if our goal is to weaken and attrit Putin and Russia, look at Putin's standing currently. So he's shown the world that he can maintain this, full-scale modern war against an enemy against a country that's supported by the United States and NATO and all the Western countries. So effectively, we're fighting Russia via these proxies, because you know what? Poland has like actual troops in there. They just wear Ukrainian uniforms. Like, there's a lot of NATO guys running around getting killed over there. So we've got, America has these European proxies fighting Russia. The world's watching. They watch Putin. His own standing in his country has increased. His favorability rating has gone up. He's enjoying the popular support of his country, probably not universally, but like his standing has improved, and his relations with our enemies have solidified and strengthened. He's now creating an alternative to our financial hegemony, whatever that fucking word is. Like, and then that, dude,
with BRICS.
Dude, that's why our government, our leadership's panicked about this shit. It's because the things that we do in the global financial world that maintains our quality of life in this country. Our quality of life is what keeps the people from ripping those guys out of their offices and murdering them, right? Because no matter what, even a poor person in our country has it pretty good. You got an iPhone. You know what I mean? Like, we're a very rich country still. Even though eggs cost more and we're complaining a lot, we are opulently wealthy still. So what maintains all that? Well, it's not our manufacturing base anymore. It's not American ingenuity and stick-to-itiveness and grit. None of that shit. It's financial. It's a financialized instruments of finance that we control all these markets with over the world. Now, you got BRICS forming. You've got people making alliances saying, well, we're not going to trade in the dollar anymore. Fuck the dollar. Okay, yeah, we hold a bunch of debt in the dollar. I don't care. We'll take it in the shorts on that, but we'll start trading in this other currency. Now, the other thing we're worried about is we don't want to compete with Russia. We don't want to compete in the European energy market with Russia. Well, too bad. Now we are. Like, that's why we blew up the Nord Stream pipeline. We're crazy, dude. I think a lot of our kind of like strange behavior globally indicates that we're like in a panic. Like, these guys are doing a good job of kind of making it seem like they're keeping it together. Now we have they did a changeover to the new regime. Now Trump's in there with all the shit. And okay. No, I think these guys are in a tailspin. I think the fucking shit's about to fall off the mountain. So,
and probably the bad part of all that, if you're waiting for the bad part, is that it's my assessment, and I hope I'm wrong, that we're not going to be in the business of power projection for very much longer. It's very unrealistic to think that we could ever power project to Taiwan to fight China over Taiwan. It's just like the C line, the C locks are too long, the G locks are too long. It's like,
dude, and I work in the. We good.
No, no.
So I work now in the industrial base. So I'm a consultant a supply chain consultant, risk management consultant to the industrial base that creates the Virginia and Columbia class nuclear submarines and some aircraft carriers and stuff. So basically, I'm working with the manufacturing and suppliers that feed into these shipyards that build, which are the most. They are like I've learned a little bit recently about our nuclear submarines. They're the most technologically advanced piece of military hardware that anyone's ever made, and nobody's even close. Like, other Russia and China have subs, but they don't have shit like ours. Ours are these bespoke, like they're like a work of art. They're like truly amazing, but they're very hard to make, and they have a very complicated supply chain that is fragile, and like the things have to be made to such a submarine that's going to live underwater. There's the tolerances and stuff. The way these things have to be made it's really difficult to do. Dude, we don't have that many of those things. If those things start getting taken out, or aircraft carriers or airplanes or anything else, like our manufacturing base is not in good shape. It's true. Like, it's hard to know with all the political, because the Democrats are, allege that the Republicans fucked it up, and the Republicans say the Democrats did it, and all these different people from different states are blaming who and whatever. But the bottom line is, like, dude, World War II required like Rosie the Riveter type shit. Like, like your mom had to go in there and make P-51 Mustangs with her biceps, right? That shit is not happening now. Like, we get into a global conflict where our military hardware gets attrited. Who's making this shit?
So I think in order to keep the ball rolling, though, because, so we're going to make so the American hegemon appears to be shrinking, but in order to keep that grind going for the military industrial complex, it's like, oh, well, look, we have this problem at the border. We have these cartels who are now terrorists, by the way. So now we have, we can just run GWAT 2.0, it can be like, we can do it right here in our very own backyard.
Dude, I don't know. I kind of support that. I kind of support the.
So that's what I'm about to say,
and it's hard to not support.
I'm in San Diego. I'm right by the border, so I'm like,
yeah, dude.
Dude, I'm of two minds about that stuff. So it's like, just like to call out my own like biases or whatever. Like, my stuff with immigration, having lived in California most of my life till ended up, but being born and raised in California and spending all that time, like, I like that Mexican people are in our country. Like I see immigration mostly as a positive. Even if it's too much, even if it's illegal or whatever, like I can just like see how the economy, and like how the economy was affected by that, all that, whatever it is, the labor, the people, like not just labor, like the way those people impact the environment, I think in a positive way. But I have a pro like Mexican person bias or something.
We work in the infantry.
Yeah, that's true. Yeah, it's probably all the Mexican dudes out on the
whole L-351
but like, but that's one aspect of it, and then the other aspect of it is like, I think that we're like, dude, I'm about like the drug thing, the fact that there's fentanyl epidemic or whatever. It's like, dude, we're creating the demand. Like, our absolute failings morally as a country is creating the demand. Like they're only feeding our weakness. Like, dude, a healthy society that had their morals intact wouldn't be susceptible to fucking cartel fentanyl. Like, it's just, I don't accept that those people have no agency. Like, no, like dude, what is it? It's not even our economic conditions. Like, it's worse than that. It's our failure as like people. Like, our society is so weak that like we have a significant chunk of people that are so like untethered from any kind of moral foundation that they'll go like take a drug that turns them into a zombie and ultimately kills them. And they just do it all the time. Like, they're everywhere. They're like wandering the streets bent in half, fucking pissing down their leg. It's insane. Like, that's not the cartel's fault. Now, that being said,
well, if
we have an opportunity to go down there and like, if we can solve the problem by killing people that are killing our people, I'm for it. Although, dude, and sometimes when I think about it, I'm like, how sick would it be to be back in a team and be like doing a raid on like a drug kingpin, like just like in the movies, like in Clear Cousin Danger and shit.
That'd be crazy. I think
I don't know.
So for me, I'm definitely pro immigration. I'm just not pro illegal immigration. I think we deserve to know who's coming into the country, and what we saw the last 4 years was out of control. Was completely insane. Like, especially when you hear about like these small communities across the U.S. that suddenly have 10,000 Haitians or 10,000 freaking name the country, that they just drop into this small community and be like, well, there you go. And we're supposed to be totally fine with that. And then they'll come on the news and be like, well, that town was dying and they brought in these people and now there's workers there. And it's like, you dropped 10,000 Haitians into Ohio, into one town. Are all 10,000 of them working in one factory? Like, that's bullshit. Maybe 100 of them are. Like, what about the other group?
There's a guy with a cart selling barbecued squirrels. We have a fucking problem. You know what I mean? Like,
where my brother lives in upstate New York, there's like roving 4 to 5 man bands of indiscriminate immigrants, and I'm like, bro, that doesn't alarm you?
It's crazy, man. It's the amount of money we're spending on that, and basically allowing it to happen, and then. The same people that will say, hey, our workers need to get paid more are the same people that are like, okay with this unfettered illegal immigration. And I'm like, don't you realize how much that's lowering wages for Americans, because you have this artificial source of cheap labor that the next guy will always work for a little bit less than the previous guy. Even illegal immigrants are like, stop the other illegal immigrants because this guy's coming in and he's going to work for less than me. And I'm going to lose my job.
Well,
kind of
and
deal.
They'll say it's they're doing the jobs that Americans won't do, and it's like, that's not true. Like, this is we talked about propaganda earlier. It's just we're susceptible to like the wrong propaganda. Like, you could propagandize people entering into the industrial base or doing these trades jobs, American people that already live here, right? But we have propaganda the other way. We tell everybody those are loser jobs, that's dead end jobs. You need to go to college, you need to assume all this debt or whatever. I just think that we could be. It wasn't this way when we grew up. Like, you know what I mean? Like, there were people doing these jobs from this country, and we didn't have to import all that.
Say Americans won't do that fucking job.
Like, well, it's not only it's like racist in a couple ways. It's like I was debating somebody on like Reddit the other day or something like that, and the guy was saying like Americans aren't going to like ruin their bodies for these jobs. And I was like, so we're going to bring in other people? Are their bodies worth less than ours? Like, what the fuck does that,
right.
What are you talking about? You're bringing in another class of people because you think it's okay to destroy their lives.
Dude, and by the
doing
way,
some of these jobs.
Work strengthens your body.
For sure. Yeah, my son is likely going, it sounds like he's got an apprenticeship basically lined up right out of high school to go into plumbing. And I'm like, that's a good job, man.
Sweet.
Yeah, dude, I'm like, that's a good job. Like, people will look at that and be like, oh, clogged toilets and stuff. And I'm like, well, that's probably a small percentage of the job, but you get paid a shit ton.
If your son's a go-getter, there's pretty good odds that he could be in his mid to late 20s owning his own business, like multiple 6-figure job.
Oh, for sure. Yeah, he knows that. And that's one of my buddies, a guy that's been on the show a few times, Michael Farrell, actually a lot of times. He's the one that kind of set him up with it. And he was like, look, dude, like, if you work hard at this, get your apprenticeship done here in San Diego, after 3 or 4 years, it's very likely you'll be making 6 figures. And he's like, the deal is right now, for every plumber that retires, they need 7 people to sign up because there's so few people that are doing these jobs. Like, there's so few people that are like signing up for these kind of gigs. They're open and there's a ton of money to be made. But like you said, the propaganda has told people that these are not their, these are for the others.
I think I would expect that to change because, and then the other aspect is like plumbing, any of these trades jobs that are hands-on, masonry, anything. These are AI proof. Like, you're not going to build a robot that does the plumbing. It's too complicated of a task. Like, you'd have to have 17 robots that do different, you know what I mean? Like, you're not getting a plumbing robot anytime soon.
At least not in the next 10 or 15 years. I think he's probably set for a little while. I would not put anything behind. I use AI every day now. I'm in digital marketing. For the people that don't know, I do digital marketing, and I'm using AI in some form or fashion basically every day for work, for research, for my own novelty. I mean, I always tell people, I'm like, this is like the early days of the internet. This is like the GeoCities days of the internet, where people are still figuring out, we have the internet. How do we use it? What do we use it for? Like, people are always asking, like, how can I even use it? I don't know how to use it in my industry. And I'm like, that's the point. Right now is the time to figure those things out. We are the forerunners of all this. Like, get in there, ask it how to use it, mess with it and figure out, because if you don't get into it, if you just want to ignore it, in 10 years, you're going to be like your parents are, where they don't even know how to use a cell phone. They don't know how to get online, or they get scammed every time they get online because they don't understand concepts and stuff. I push important for people to do that. Yeah, you getting out of here, man?
Yeah, I'm gonna duck out, man. It's great talking with you, Justin. I got a hard date with the wife, so thank you, everybody. It's been a wonderful
I'll just
time.
leave this here because I'm gonna split after this at some point.
Man.
Okay.
Love talking to you. Yeah, man. Yeah. Take it easy, fellas.
All right.
Good
Have
talking
fun
to
at the
everybody.
concert.
Yeah.
Later, dude.
Yeah, I agree. I use AI at work mostly for research, but like its ability to deep search things, and no, actually I use it like I have to produce some products like slides and stuff for briefs, and the ease at which you can kind of just tell it, the AI assistant in the Google Slides, to just create things for you is pretty handy. It speeds up my process for sure. But
yeah, I mean it's important for people to, like I said, kind of get familiar with it and kind of use it. And there's just so many things that you can do with it. And I don't think people understand the depth of what can be done, both on a personal. I mean, I've gone to where I've literally, what was like, what should I make for dinner tonight? And I didn't know what to make. So I took all the ingredients I had and like all the food and stuff I had in my fridge, random stuff, put it into AI and was like, give me 3 gourmet recipes. And it spit it out. I'm like, okay, it looks like I'm doing shrimp scampi and da-da-da.
That's a good idea.
Yeah. And you can do it. Right. You can do it like that. So, but.
All right. So I don't mean to steer the conversation, but we're on tech already. Do you want to talk about, the technate that's being formed currently with Trump and Musk and Thiel?
What do you mean? Go ahead.
Well, let me start by trying to feel out where you at. Hold
on, real quick. Let's wrap up. Let's make sure we're done. Is there anything else you wanted to talk about on the whole Ukraine and Russia thing, or we good?
No, I honestly, like, I just agree with you. I don't want to see any more of those guys die. Like, I have empathy and like, dude, like to call out my bias again, like, I kind of like I read a lot of Russian literature, so I'm like kind of fascinated by Russia in general and the history, and so I'm like sympathetic to the Russians, and I'm like, I want this whole thing to end, so all these Slavic guys stop fucking killing each other. Like, these guys, are
you sympathetic to the Ukrainians as well? Do you see?
Yeah,
both
100%,
sides?
definitely, 100%. Yeah, because obviously, like, any Ukrainian man, worth his salt would be shoulder to shoulder with his bros, defending his country for sure, no doubt about it. So, and it's like, it's tough to see those guys getting press ganged, pulled off the street and thrown into vans and then sent to the front. To the degree to which that's true, it's hard to know, like, whether what I'm consuming is like Russian propaganda or Ukrainian propaganda. Yeah. I'm kind of experiencing the whole thing through like my phone, and so I try to just not, but. Dude, it's hard to deny. Like, you've seen the drone videos where both sides do this, by the way. It's not just the Ukrainians, but they take a prisoner. That's why you always see these people getting killed with a drone and they're unarmed and they're kind of spinning around, running around a road or something. It's because they take their prisoners. It's like a game. And they tell them to run and they run them down with a drone and kill them. Both sides do it. So that's why you keep seeing, because at first I was like, where's these people's guns every time? Like, at least like roll to your back and try to shoot the drone or something, but like then I figured out, oh shit, these guys are prisoners, and it's like a sick game. So.
I've never really thought of that. That is kind of crazy if that's the case.
Yeah, they're getting pretty wild about it. And, it's the another interesting thing about the drone. I saw a documentary. I wish I could remember what it's called, but it's on YouTube. The documentary crew goes with this Ukrainian drone operator, and he's like he's like vaping. He's got like earrings in. He's like a gamer, like a pro. I don't remember what game, but he's like a pro gamer prior to all this happening. So now he's a drone guy, and they kind of like drive him to this place where they fill the back of a truck with like, he's got like 25 drones for the night. And they get him down into this bunker and he just flies mission after mission after mission. And he just like finds people to kill and kills them. And he's like vaping, joking. It's like a video. It's a video game.
We started this whole thing with like Switchblade. You remember the Switchblade program? That was like the first kind of, correct me if I'm wrong, but I feel like that's the first kind of like small drone, like squad level drone. You can just throw it out there and smoke somebody with it.
Yeah, loitering munition. I got several buddies now that work for Andril as FSRs. So Andril, this is Palmer Lucky's company. These guys are making all the technology that's, dude, and this is, again, here I go on my bullshit, but like, this goes into what I wanted to talk about. Like, Trump wins the election, and I don't vote, and like I see voting as an act of consent, and like I was not willing to consent to either of the administrations that were presented to me.
Do you vote for your local? Do you vote locally though?
Yeah, I'll vote locally. I just don't participate in the national elections, but yeah. So Trump wins, and I'm like when Trump wins, I'm happy, but I'm happy for dumb reasons. Like I find Trump to be funny. I think he's like a stand-up comedian. Like, you know, you can pull up Trump's IMDb. Trump is an actor. He's an entertainer. He's a performer. He's a businessman. He's an oligarch. He's a bunch of things, right? But generally, I enjoy. So I'm kind of operating all the time like I'm being presented a show, like a kind of like a loosely choreographed production is what I'm consuming on my phone and on my screens all the time. So, okay, so now this season has good writing because Trump's in it. It's going to be enjoyable. I'm gonna laugh more. It's going to be fine. And again, he doesn't disappoint. Like we get the I don't buy the execution thing. Like it's just so.
No, you don't think that really happened?
Look, man. I don't.
Or
know
do you
what
think
happened.
there's
I'm
more
just using
to
my
it than what we saw?
I don't look. I maybe it happened. Okay, I'm not taking a definite stand. I'm just telling you like how I experience it. Okay, because again, I like my baseline is that my default mode is that what I'm being shown on my screen is part of some sort of, it serves a purpose. It's not organic. Okay, now that's not always true, right? Some things are organic and they just happen, right?
Mm-hmm.
But I start from the position of I'm being shown something for a reason. So the Trump thing. Look, dude, like if this was if you were watching it on a show or it was written into some drama that you were watching, or if it was something you didn't have any emotional attachment to, something that happened in another country and you were just observing it, it would appear completely fucking absurd to you. Like the way those, just as someone who's spent a bunch of time around people that are getting shot at and reacting to contact and all these things, like if you spend time really getting into the weeds about what happened that day, watching how those people responded, understanding what the police were up to prior to, what the guy that allegedly shot him was up to, like, there's a lot of unknowns and a lot of things that don't make sense and are illogical. Now, I immediately kind of made my decision that I was suspicious of it and moved on because I don't care to go down these rabbit holes deeply about it, right? But it's drama. It's like it's all just a bit too perfect. You know, he gets up and he's like 5 foot. But let's just say it was real. Doesn't matter. Okay. I'm entertained. The point is I'm entertained. Whether it was fake or real, I'm like, good. Like, this is what I wanted, right? I'm getting the show. But then in short order, here comes Musk with his chainsaw and all his shit, right? Now, am I in support of finding where there's fraud, waste, and abuse in the government and it's rampant and dealing with it? Of course I am, right? Do I ostensibly kind of like the idea of that? Sure. But I know too much about Musk and Thiel to be anything but freaked out by what's going on. There's a political philosophy. So Trump is their guy. Trump is the front-facing element of this thing that's happening right now. Do you have ever heard of Curtis Yarvin?
No.
Okay, so if you get a chance and you guys listening, or if you're interested or whatever, just look up Curtis Yarvin. He's a political theorist, basically. He operated a blog for a lot of years under the name Mencius Marbug, but he is responsible for the political philosophy that drives guys like Peter Thiel, Mark Andreessen, and now Trump. J.D. Vance is definitely a Curtis Yarvin acolyte. Or if he's not a Curtis Yarvin acolyte, he's a Peter Thiel acolyte, and Peter Thiel gets his political philosophy from Curtis Yarvin. Now, what these people believe now, I think Trump is just their agent. Okay, like I don't think Trump is a principled person, and I'm not saying this to shit talk him. I just think this is how he is. I don't think he's a principled person beyond he wants to be the man. He wants people to like him. He wants to be successful. I just don't think he has this political philosophy that these guys have. By their own words, right out of Andreessen's mouth, right out of Peter Thiel's mouth, right out of Curtis Yarvin's mouth, these people, they have some basic tenets of their philosophy. One of them is that there will always be elites. Okay, so we have, until Trump won. So what was cast off when Trump won was the political establishment, right or left, Democrat, Republican. We have a degenerate, decadent, kind of failing political elite. Okay, Trump comes in and he defeats them and casts them off. So these guys like Yarvin believe that there will always be elites. We just need better elites than the ones that we had, right? It's not about like the people, democracy, the will of the people being manifest in the government. It's not about that. It's about top down from a better class of elites. This class of elites is building a technocracy, a technate. These are, and you notice like, all of a sudden, all the tech CEOs, they're like pro-Trump now. like Zuck's on board. What's the Amazon guy? Bezos. Everyone's cool with Trump now, right? Because they're aligning themselves with the establishment of this technate. So these guys, they're very willing. Like Curtis Yarvin advocates for an absolute monarchy, like a corporate monarchy, and he makes the case this way: every corporation that's successful that you use the products of, from Walmart to Sony to Apple to fucking Hyundai, right? All of those things are run as basically a dictatorship. There's a CEO, there may be a board of directors or whatever, but it's not democratic, right? The things that are effective and actually work in the world, they're not democratic. And this is their point. This is what like a guy like Curtis Yarvin is like, look, this experiment in democracy, we're now at the tail end of it. It worked for a while, but now it's coming apart, and we're going to replace it with this technate. The technate, they're built, the surveillance, the technology now exists for them to have complete control in a way that they never did before. Everything from digitizing our currency. So like people are pro Bitcoin, but they don't understand. And whatever, like if you can make money off Bitcoin, great. Like the idea, this egalitarian idea that you can have this this kind of money that is not coming through a central banking concern. It's like very distributive and, anarchic and everything, and people love it. But this is just the predecessor to them establishing their central bank digital currency. Once they have that and we're completely cashless, then the world's their oyster. Like I say something they don't like on the internet, something anti-Semitic, I'm a Columbia University student who doesn't like to see babies slaughtered in Gaza, so I've been running my mouth. Now all of a sudden they can geofence my money and say, well, you can spend it here, but not here. You can't use it to travel. They can just start establishing these rules on how we can use our money. Now, the rules aren't in place for that currently, but the technology is, right? So they're going to do these things incrementally. They got Palmer Luckey from Anduril on board. He's part of this technate. He's building the AI security stuff that we're going to use on the border. They're already using it on the border. They've already got this technology in place. They're going to put it in the smart cities, right? As they build these, it's not like Trump is against these smart cities. Like we're going to start having these things that people were, when it was the, World Economic Forum talking about it, all the right wingers were up in arms and they were pushing back and they were like, how dare you? But when it comes from guys like Vance or Peter Thiel or Trump, then it's good. You know what I mean? Like I think there's a lot that's changing in our world as this technology comes online. Mm-hmm. And, for all I know, like maybe they're right. Maybe Curtis Yarvin and Peter Thiel are right. Maybe we just don't know what's good for us. And the technology exists to kind of hold people accountable for crimes before they can commit them. Like all this like pre-crime, they're serious about this stuff, right? Maybe they're right. Maybe the end result of all that is this like tech-enabled utopia. We're going to be on a universal basic income because there'll be no labor jobs anymore because robots and AI will have taken it all over. This is the world that they imagine and they speak about publicly and they write about. So these are the guys that are behind Trump. And so, but the problem is like what they sell you is the culture war shit. They sell you the stuff that with Trump that you want. Like Trump gets in there and all of a sudden they're fixing the military. Oh shit, the DEI stuff's gone. Like that guy, the Hegseth, like, it's hard not to get behind that. You're like, yeah, dude, they're gonna make the military like it was back when I was in it, like in the 90s. It's gonna be, I'm for that, right? Like that's cool, right? They're gonna close the border. They're gonna go after the cartels. They're gonna do. These are positive things that I agree are good. Mm-hmm. But I think that behind all that, the big project, that's little shit to them. This is little shit for them. They're gonna fix these problems that should have been fixed anyway. Fine, but in behind all that, there's a bigger project, and the bigger project is what I want to point people towards and say, hey, look, are you ready to abdicate your responsibility over to these people and their algorithms? Are you willing to do this? And I don't think we're going to have much of a choice. I think the genie's out of the bottle with a lot of this stuff, and we're off to the races. I don't know.
Well, with AI, the advancement of AI and technology, like I said, you got to learn about it because it's getting involved in everything. It's getting put into everything, even if you don't like it. I was totally fine with the Google Assistant on my Samsung phone, but now Google's doing away with a Google Assistant and making it into an AI assistant, which has been so far
Yeah.
less efficient and effective as the original Google Assistant that they had on there. To me, at least, I do think there's going to be some natural side effects to advancing technology. I don't. For me, like, let's touch on a couple things here. For the crypto thing, for me, I don't see it. I see crypto. Yeah, that's a good, like, what do you want to call it? Commodity or something that people are trading. But I don't ever see Bitcoin like taking over as a main kind of currency. And, you know, the question I've always, and someone can put this in the comments if you can answer this question, but I've always put it out there, like, there is a limited amount of Bitcoins that can be mined. It's not unlimited. There's a limited amount. And every year we hear about, oh, so-and-so lost their crypto wallet. It had $1 million worth of Bitcoin. Oh, so-and-so lost this. It had $1.2 billion worth of Bitcoin. Okay, well, in 100 years, how much Bitcoin is there going to be available? You know what I'm saying? Like, that to me just doesn't make sense. Like, there's an end state where there's only going to be a certain amount and there can be no more created. As they are lost and things happen naturally because of whatever. How does that look? You know what I'm saying? So that's why.
Just briefly, Bitcoin's a brand name. It's like Kleenex. You know what I mean? Like, so it wouldn't be Bitcoin. It would be the central bank digital currency. Probably they're talking about XRP being the. So we're just talking about what it is. Basically, it's a digitalized, global currency. So what are the rails it's going to ride on? Like, what's the technology? What's the mechanism that's going to facilitate that? So again, and it's tough to know. People are trying to figure out what they're going to land on, because if you invest in it, you're going to make some money. But like they're saying XRP, it won't be Bitcoin per se. And then even when they adopt central bank digital currency, which will actually probably feel just like it does now, because it's like, you can use your phone, you can Venmo, it's all digital kind of anyway, unless you're actually pulling money out of the bank. So it'll just feel like that. They'll make it fairly seamless, but they'll have the ability to do kind of authoritarian stuff with it. But even so, I don't think that'll preclude people from ever using Bitcoin. Like, some of the things that are possible, like, to be optimistic about, and this is what like the Bitcoin like maximalist type say, is like, yeah, the government can invent whatever digital currency they want. We can still trade. We can trade Dogecoins if we want. We could trade bottle caps and say they have value. It doesn't matter. Like, there's nothing really they can do with a bunch of people deciding that something has value and then trading in that way. So, but yeah,
we also need to remember. I think people need to remember as well. I just saw this I saw this stat the other day, and I haven't double checked it, so it could be wrong, but I doubt it is. But it was that I think it was 60% of India doesn't have internet access. So we're like advancing like crazy into this like technology and digital currency and AI and everything's gonna be online. And we because of where we're at in our own society, we forget there's major parts of the world that are nowhere near having that kind of capability, or they don't even understand what you're talking about. Like, if you went to some village in India and you started trying to describe Bitcoin, they'd be like, what the fuck are you talking about right now? Like, this is, that's insane, which I think that's a weak point for us, because if we get so wrapped into technology and then something happens to technology, something crazy happens, then we're in a really bad spot, because we forgot how to work in a technological world like that. But
well, the other problem with this technology, or the issue with it, and again, this is like how I get in trouble with people, because nobody likes to be moralized to, right? But there's this thing called the is-ought fallacy, right? Like, you cannot derive what you ought do or not do from what is. Like, you can't just measure and quantify things or observe things and then derive what you ought do from that. In order to get an ought, what we ought be doing, ought not be doing, you have to have an objective moral standard. We've strayed very far away from ours. So the thing is, like, okay, let's say me and you and Cody and like 7 other people we knew from the Marines or whatever, we lived in the same like cul-de-sac together, and we just all of a sudden got a whole bunch of like interesting technology, right? At that scale, and with people that kind of share decent, like a regular moral kind of standard, like, we may feel a little bit differently about something minor, but we just basically all agree, like, hey, look, we shouldn't be violating each other's privacy. We shouldn't be aggressing against each other in our property or in any way. We shouldn't do it, right? We'd have no problem implementing that technology into our kind of lives in a way that would just be a benefit. Like, hey, because we have a shared moral understanding, then that informs how we behave with this technology. The problem is this shit is coming online for everybody, and nobody agrees anymore. Like, we live in a country where, I'll take a hot button issue like OnlyFans, right? Like, if you ask me, if I was, emperor of America, I would completely ban it and I would make it illegal. Like, I would do that with all of pornography. And like, I know how that sounds to people. I don't know if I'd make pornography illegal, but I would make it very hard for pornographers to do business in my country. There'd be no financial incentives for it, and it would just be difficult. Or I'd leave it to the states, probably, like it kind of is. Like, they can ban certain, I would make it. I would put some mechanisms in place to kind of make it hard for pornographers to do business, and then I would be releasing anti-pornography propaganda, because I just don't think it's a net good for the society, and I don't want to live in a place where people like tolerate, or like tolerate's not even the word. Well, we're past tolerance. We're now like telling young women, no, you shouldn't be shamed for that. That's called sex work. It's legitimate. It's no different than working at a laundromat or something. And anybody that tells you otherwise is a bigot. I would go the other way. I would say, hey, look, I don't want to throw anybody in jail for making pornography, but I think we should be shaming you. I think you should be a pariah. I think if someone finds out you do pornography, you should be ashamed of yourself. Like, not just my bullshit, but I mean, the problem is, I'm just using that to illustrate a point. That's one issue where people are a million years apart. So it's hard for us to determine what's appropriate to do with this technology, because we don't agree.
So someone on the hard left, I think, would call you a Christian nationalist for saying something like that.
Yeah, I definitely. So, and then to them, I would say, even if you don't believe that, like, there's no sky daddy, right? Like, we're just an accident of chemistry and physics, particles bumping around that just magically kind of resulted in unbelievable sophistication and order. But let's forget all that for a minute. Say there's no sky daddy, right? We still need a moral standard that we agree on. So for pragmatic reasons, forget whether God's real or not, just for strictly pragmatic reasons, you can data supports this. We would all be better off behaving as if like the Christian ethics were real, or like we would all be better off as a society adhering to Christian ethics than not doing so. And the proof is like in the pudding. Now, again, that's people are usually too emotional to engage with that. They go, well, you can't tell me, what to believe. It's like, yeah, true. I'm just making the case for the health of our culture. It's not healthy. Like, we're not doing good. Like, we have problems. Like, we don't get along. We're not like, we're sick. We're unhappy. Like, people are crazy. Like, it's not going well. So, okay, what's going on? What changed? Well, and again, there was excesses. Like, there's problems. Like, you got to find a middle ground. Like, do I think we should throw gay people off roofs? No. Do I think it should be illegal to be gay? No. Do I want, a 25-year-old woman with a 4-year state college degree talking about transgenderism to my 9-year-old? No. You know what I mean? Like, we don't. It's a mess, right?
Mm-hmm.
But again, I'm somebody who spent most of my life stone cold atheist, hedonist. Like, the whole time I was in the Marines, like all that. Like, there's no atheists in a foxhole. No, there are. Like, I used to read like Bertrand Russell books just so I'd have ammo to use against like Christian dudes in my team. Like, there's always like one or two that are like into it. It's like born again dudes, and I would fuck with them. I'd be like, yeah, well, this part of the Bible contradicts this. I was like a real dick about it, like a real dick. You know what I mean? So I have empathy for people that are that way, that like don't believe any of that stuff. Doesn't matter. Like, it doesn't matter like whether you believe in God or not. We need a standard. Like, imagine being in a military unit where there was like, you kind of just do what you want all the time, no matter what.
Yeah. Well, so to back up, for the OnlyFans thing specifically, like, I think one of the big issues is that the media, social media, user generated content, they all talk about these like top 0.1% girls that are making like hundreds of thousands of dollars a month, millions of dollars a year. and all that stuff. And it encourages, even without actually encouraging, it encourages these young women to try it themselves without understanding that you're never going to make that much. Like, the odds of you making that much money are super. What you're probably going to do is make as much money as you would if you had a regular job, at most. Yeah. And what are you giving up in return? You're putting yourself out on the internet. You know, you're showing your butthole for $4.99. You know what I'm saying? Like,
dude, and at some point, dude, and I have a lot of empathy for those girls because, dude, what they need, you know, probably if they had like a strong father in their life, they wouldn't be doing that to begin with. So it's like, so our culture has already failed them in that this seems like a viable, and just like you said, like we're showing them examples of, you know, this girl just bought a Bugatti for showing her butthole to people or whatever. And it's like you said, that's the exception, not the rule. But, and then we just don't, like, we'd be doing them a favor by saying, hey, look, this is not, you're capable of more. This is a low frequency thing to do. Like, this is going to hurt you long term. Like, you may not think so now. And dude, like, I'm a huge hypocrite for even saying any of that shit because, like,
you have an OnlyFans subscription? Is that what you're saying?
I don't have an OnlyFans. Nobody wants to see that shit. But I did things that were against my interest, but it's lower risk for a guy. You know, like the things I was doing is like stuff other guys would tell you, oh, that's cool. Like you get like positive reinforcement for, you know, because it's just the nature. This is the way it is with men and women. Like they can kind of tell you that it's otherwise. They could say, no. Women can be completely slutty, you know, and that's cool now. We don't judge. And it's like, no, we still judge. Like, I'm not interested in a girl that does that, and I'm not alone. Dude, that's an innate thing. Like I think it's natural. I think I
would never date an OnlyFans model. I would never date a stripper. I would never date a porn star. You know, like that's
in my previous life, I definitely would have. I just wouldn't have treated them. I wouldn't have taken them seriously. I would have like hooked up with them, but there would have been no possible long-term future with any of them.
I could never see myself having a kid with someone who's naked online. No. You know how traumatizing that'll be for that kid in the future? I mean,
dude, and it's these girls are making this decision at such a young age that, dude, we're all idiots when we're that young. I'm not even judging the girl. I'm judging just our failings as a culture. You know, it's not the girls' fault. Like, dude, they're young. It's hard to earn a buck in this world. And then our culture tells everybody they have to have all these high-end consumer items or they ain't shit. And we tell these girls, like, dude, we have bad propaganda. Again, it's like the feminism has gone too far. It's like, don't get a husband and a family to serve. You don't want to subordinate yourself to the will of a man in a home, you know, as part of this system that creates healthy human beings. No, you need to go into some corporation and subordinate yourself to a mid-level manager who's a man. You know what I mean? Like the feminism is trading a natural hierarchy for a synthetic hierarchy and then claiming that it's liberating the woman. It's not liberating the woman. You've just moved her. You've moved her from one patriarchal setup to another one, because in you can count all the boss bitches you want. It's the corporate structure is still patriarchal. Statistically, primarily, you know what I mean? Like, yeah, there's plenty of women in leadership. I'm saying the norm. The chances are this young woman that assumes, you know, $180,000 in student loan debt to get a marketing degree and is now working in an office somewhere is subordinating herself to whatever man is in charge of her division there. And now she has debt, and now she has debt that she's paying with OnlyFans and can't get a husband. Like, this is not helping women.
Yeah. No, I agree.
In my opinion.
I agree. And again, I think like a lot of things, COVID really made things worse, right? Because they sat at home and were like, how can I make money? And then this OnlyFans opportunity came about and people were like, oh, well, I could just sit in my living room. Again, my buddy Michael, who's a plumber, has said that he's gone into houses and there's like, they have their OnlyFans room that's like a setup for that. And it's kind of like,
no way.
Yeah, like that's their filming room. You know what I'm saying?
That's
I was
wild,
like,
man.
I know. I was like, dude, that is crazy. And you know, it's, I don't know. It's crazy.
It's understandable. Like, it's understandable why they would do that because, and again, like absent any kind of moral instruction otherwise, like they're told at a young age, like that's no big deal. Like,
what if someone told you, they were like, hey, I'll give you $10 million. You just have to take one naked photo and put it online. You know what I'm saying? A lot of people are going to say yes to that.
$10 million, just a naked photo.
Yeah.
Honestly, damn, dude, I want to say no.
Where's your fucking morals, Aaron? You piece of
shit. I know.
Shit.
I'm just being honest. I'd have to think about it real hard because $10 million, man, that's
generational wealth. You know,
that's me never working again, and then me being able to spend every second that I would otherwise be working with my family.
That's the option that a lot of these girls are being told, though. That's what they're being told. Yeah. Like, hey, if you do this, this is what you're gonna get, and they're thinking of it like, man, I'm poor or I'm lower middle class, and I'd really like to go take that trip to fucking France. You know what I'm saying? Dude, and not worry about it. Or I'd really like to buy something for my mom, buy my mom a house.
And the way our society works is if you get enough money, it doesn't matter what people can't shame you then, like that. And I'm pretty sure that's part of the calculus. Like, yeah, they can talk shit when I'm nobody, but when I'm rich,
I'll just laugh at them. It's funny though, because we, like I said earlier, like a lot of these girls will start this thinking that they have this possibility of making this much money. And it's like, hey, the numbers are there. They are the top 1.1% of OnlyFans creators. That means 99.9% of the people doing it aren't making that much money. Most of them significantly less. So
yeah,
I mean, the odds are they're telling you the odds. It even says I think like on their accounts if they're like a 0.1%, 1% or whatever. There's this yeah, there's this chick right now who's like one of those models who's like down in Florida banging a bunch of people on spring break for content and stuff. It's stuff like that. It's just, I don't know, man. It's the whole thing is crazy. Gross. It's crazy, but again, I see where like I said, if someone was like, hey, post a picture of your butthole online, I'm going to give you $10 million. I'd be like,
I mean, it's totally rational what they're doing, which is why like this is just, it's a tough time for these people, like young people. How many kids you just got? The one teenager?
Yeah. Yep.
Dude,
he's 18.
I'm 18. Okay. Well, all right. So so that's for him to manage. Then he's got to figure out how he's gonna.
Well, he's still in high school. He's finishing up his senior year of high school. He's one of those like late birthdays, and so he turned like me. I was the same way. I turned 18 my senior year. So he understands, like, you're 18 now, man. You're responsible. If something bad happens, it's no longer me and your mom having to help you out and stuff like that. It's on you now. Like, legally, you're in charge of yourself. However, as someone who was 18, and I moved out of my mom's house like a few months before I even graduated high school because I was 18 and a couple buddies got a place and they asked me if I wanted to move in. And I was like, all right, as someone that did that and kind of knows where things can go wrong in that kind of situation, I still try to put out like guardrails for them just to be like, hey man, make smart decisions. You're an adult and you can make decisions, but let me give you a little bit of advice from someone that's been there. And as most teenagers are, he'll listen to some and he'll not listen to some, it's just how it is. But it's on us as parents and as adults in society to like try to guide these kids in the right direction. Don't let them go down the wrong path.
Dude, it's tough. You're competing with social media.
Yeah. Well, luckily he's not a big social media guy. He's a little bit on Instagram and stuff. He doesn't even have TikTok. Like, he's not really into that. Yeah. I'm extremely lucky that he's as well-rounded. Like, he's got a good head on his shoulders. I don't know. He's so far in life, he's been good. I have no complaints about my son because he's just doing the things that he's got to do. He doesn't give me grief about stuff. He doesn't cause trouble. He doesn't get in trouble with the law. And part of that, I think, is because, there's expectations. You know what I'm saying? And not like, I'm not like a helicopter parent and I'm making him do things and I'm like, you have to get straight A's so that you can get into the best college. No, I'm like, hey man, do your best. That's all I'm telling you. I'm walking. Hey, if you're going to do something, do your best. I know you don't like being in high school. It sucks. Do your best. Get it over with. It's a check in the box, and then you're done with it. And you don't have to worry about it. Don't be the guy that quits on your junior year or your senior year and goes and, because he's like, I don't even need a high school diploma to work as a plumber. And I'm like, dude, okay, no.
Just hang out. Just enjoy it, man. It doesn't get easier in life. Like, high school, like, they don't have that perspective, though.
And they're coming into a weird world, and you're right about like technology and I guess to go back to what you were saying before about this, like like, what were we saying, like technocrats or whatever, kind of running.
Yeah.
I mean, maybe to a point. I mean, I think technology is advancing, and it's gonna go. There's nothing we can do about that. I don't think it's gonna become like a. I don't know, man. I'm trying to think of how to say this. I don't think like Musk and Thiel and all those guys are like going to run everything, like take everything over. You know, they're pseudo leaders of the world at that point. I do think that they have an impact. You know what I'm saying? I just don't know. I don't see it as dark as you do, I guess.
I think it'll depend on whose political philosophy gets traction. So the existing order, the neoliberal global order, these guys, you know, that have been in power since after World War II, they don't want to give it up. But dude, Trump and company has got them on the ropes. I think they're in tough shape. I think the existing order is in tough shape. I think a lot of the Republican holdouts are now firmly in the Trump camp because these people are pragmatic. They're just going to, Trump's going to crush any dissenters. He on -2 for Trump this time. I don't think he's taking any kind of bullshit. Like he had that first go around. And again, this isn't like pro or anti-Trump. It's just kind of like what I observed. Like that first time around, I don't think he knew fully what he was getting into. And I think he just assumed that he'd have all the Republicans and didn't know that there was a bunch of them that absolutely hated him and would work counter to him, to include, like, you know, he had a big issue with guys like General Mattis and stuff when he's telling his chairman of the Joint Chiefs and he's telling his military to get out of Syria, and they're slow rolling him or they're lying to him. You know, I remember they openly said that after he was no longer president, that they had lied to him so that they could keep troops in Syria, but they told him that there were no troops there anymore. They were proud of it because from their perspective, they are the government. You know what I mean? That they are the security state. So again, neither here nor there, my opinion about those guys, but like, I think that who knows what they're going to do to try to get power. But if you kind of look at, like, you know, the Vance is probably the front runner for the Republicans after Trump. And dude, maybe Gavin Newsom kind of rises up or something, but like, it's not looking good for the Dems, you know, like they don't seem to have their shit together. And so it'll be, if the rules-based international order gets power again, it's going to have to be the Democrats. And like, I mean, a lot can happen in the convening 4 years, but like, dude, and so if we go another election cycle with a Peter Thiel candidate in there, so Vance is very much.
Wait, hold on. Why are you so against Peter Thiel? Like, what's the issue here?
I'm not saying I'm against him. I'm just pointing to the fact that he is responsible for JD Vance. He funded JD Vance from the word jump. He's was instrumental in JD Vance getting that book published.
He worked in his firm, correct? Didn't JD Vance work in Thiel's like something? He worked
but I think yes, but he was. That's not like how he met Thiel. I'm not exactly sure like how it all. Oops. Sorry, hold on. Yeah, but okay. So back to Thiel. He has a very specific philosophy about how the government should be run, and it's not the one that we've been experiencing since World War II. It's not this. Now, I'm not saying that like all of a sudden democracy will go away. I just think it'll take a different form. I think that I think these guys, it might be better. You know, it's not like I don't like Peter Thiel. He seems weird. Like all these guys seem real weird to me. Like Musk, like forget what they're doing. Like if you just put me in a room with any of these guys and like I'm sitting there and they're talking, they seem completely insane. Like Peter Thiel's like sweating. He seems nuts. Musk is like autistic and insane. Like he seems nuts to me. Like these just don't seem like stable, normal people. And like he named one of his kids like a series of numbers and dashes and shit. Like
yeah.
We're giving these people an immense amount of power, and I don't know what their. So my thing is like I don't know what their moral foundations are. Like what are their limits? Like what are they about ultimately? You know?
Yeah,
I don't know.
People are hating on Musk for sure, but it's undeniable that he has made quite the impact on just humanity with some of the stuff that he is involved with. You know, with these rocket launches, with Tesla, with PayPal, and a lot of this stuff, people will rightly say these were things that were created that he jumped in on and like invested in and stuff like that. But he's also, since he's invested in these things, he's also helped guide them to where they are now. You know what I'm saying? It's not like he just threw 10 million or 10 billion or whatever at PayPal or at Tesla and then just let them continue running it. Like, he had some hands-on changes that he made to like advance them to where they are to this point. So it's like undeniable to say that he's having an impact on humanity. I mean, the biggest thing, watching these SpaceX rockets is crazy. You know what I'm saying? Especially when they start catching them. Like, that's crazy. And I understand what, like, listening to him talk, I've watched multiple interviews of his. I do think he has like some kind of touch of autism or something, which he probably, I would say he freely admits. I don't know. I think he does more good than bad. I guess.
I don't disagree with all that. Like, you know, it's undeniable that he's having an impact. Okay. But for me, just as I like stare at all these changes in our world, right? And it's in this journey I've been on to like understand what kind of philosophically underpins all this stuff. When I see guys like Thiel and Trump, or not Trump, I kind of know what Trump's about, but Thiel and Musk, I see them, you know, accumulating power, and they're creating this technology. And like you said, yeah, the rockets and you know, but for me, it's like these are items, these are material items and quantities of material items, and the success that we're talking about is in the production, the moving forward of these technologies, the production and kind of, you know, proliferation of these technologies. But nowhere in there can I find a moral good. Like, I want an improved world for myself and my children and for everybody else. You know what I mean? Like, and the mere advancement in production of technology, it's not obvious to me like how that results in a better world for me or my kids. Okay. You can say that the technology is inevitable. And so, you know, if it's an American that's creating the technology, then we win and whatever. So maybe, but like, dude, like, I don't give a single solitary shit about going to Mars, anybody ever going to Mars, any of that shit. Like, I don't believe anyone's ever going to Mars. I think it's nonsense. But even if it was true, like,
why do you think it's nonsense though?
I just don't even think they have their little dune buggies up there. I think that's all bullshit.
You think space travel's all like fake?
I mean, I don't know. I'm not convinced.
I mean, you have to believe in the space station and people being in space, because you can literally see it from Earth.
I mean, that's low Earth orbit though. That's not Mars, which is 90 million miles away.
Yeah.
So like, what? Again, maybe it's true, but just using my discernment and understanding like these people's propensity to tell world-changing lies, and that's another whole rabbit hole. But like, I could give you 10 examples of things that these people, you know, lied about. But like, okay, what I'm expected to believe. A couple things. Like, first of all, what I'm told, what I've shown pictures of, is that Musk put a red Tesla Roadster with a fake spaceman in it on a rocket, shot it into space, and it's on its way to Mars. Like, that's what they tell me. And then they show you a picture of it, and it looks like nonsense. And then Musk goes, you can tell it's real because of how fake it is. From my perspective, somebody that's like into all this shit, I'm like, yeah, that's them fucking with me. Like, they're laughing at me. You know, like, I don't believe there's a red Tesla Roadster floating to fucking Mars. So that's one thing. I also don't happen to believe that there's dune buggies driving around on Mars, 90 million miles away, sending 4K fucking. And there's like a dude.
You don't think the Mars rovers are real?
No, I just don't.
I
can't empirically demonstrate to you that they're fake or anything. But I just, again, erring on the side of like, there's nothing about those things being on Mars that's important to me in any way or benefits me. But these guys, they're the science or whatever. Like, it's obvious to me how they benefit from that and how I don't. You know what I mean? Like, to continue to show everybody that it's like they're justifying their $58 million a day average budget or whatever for NASA. It's like, hey, again, I know how insane that sounds. Like, how many people would have to be in on it and all this other shit. I'm not saying I definitively know that there's no fucking remote control cars on Mars. I just don't really buy it.
I don't know. I think it's true. I think we're looking at it now kind of like if you were in the 1400s and they're like, hey, there's a land across the ocean that we can go inhabit. And everybody's like, yeah, right. You know, bullshit. You know, it's like, yeah, I think it's kind of like that. And I think that's kind of, I like that we're doing it, because I do think that we got to continue pushing, you know, new frontiers. I do think the Earth is a finite resource, right? So what are the options beyond that, beyond Earth, for if something were to happen here?
I don't know that the Earth's a finite resource. I think the Earth's like endlessly abundant. I don't think it's been empirically demonstrated that it's a finite resources. I don't think so. It's like,
you don't think an asteroid or something coming and hitting us could kind of
oh, I mean, maybe that could happen. I don't like,
but I think that's that's what they're doing. They're like, hey, we're not going to wait for something bad to be getting ready to happen for us to try to figure this out. We should figure it out now, so that when something bad does happen, we have some kind of recourse.
Like, what are we gonna, like, if an asteroid's coming, what are we gonna do?
Send 8 billion people to Mars? No.
I mean, look, dude, like, it's just, for me, it comes down to, like, I have no way of independently verifying whether that stuff's true. So it's like, I have to believe, I have to have faith. So it's hard for me to put my faith in these institutions when I just don't trust them. So again, like, I'm not trying to take a hard stand. Like, I don't think it's true. I'm just saying, yeah, maybe it is, maybe it isn't. But at the end of the day,
maybe it's just not a priority for you to care about.
Yeah, I don't care about it, I guess. Yeah.
That's kind of how I am with a lot of things, man. You know, that's where I've kind of gotten with Russia, Ukraine. Like, I just don't care anymore. If we want to, if Ukraine wants to buy weapons from us, then sure, we can sell them weapons so they can continue their fight. But I don't think we should just be giving stuff away. Kind of like with the whole, and I know this may tick off another conversation, the whole thing with Israel and Palestine, whatever. I don't care. I don't really care about either one of them. Let them do their thing. If Israel wants to buy weapons from us, cool, we'll sell them weapons. But I don't think we should be actively involved in, you know, that's their issue to deal with. You know, not our issue to deal with. So,
and I think most people agree with that at a minimum. Like, you don't hear too many people advocating for, like, us to go get involved over there. Although we did that, like, floating pier thing.
That fucking pier was so stupid, and someone and an American died on that thing because of that.
Like by accident or something, right?
Yeah, he got injured. He got injured on a pier that they knew would not work. For people that don't know what we're talking about, look up the floating pier in Gaza that cost us like $100 million or some shit, and almost no. It was supposed to be used to bring in supplies. Almost no supplies went on it because it was not useful at all. It's like a pier that you would build on like a lake or a harbor or something like that. This was on the open ocean. Pier. So it's like, it's just getting fucked up constantly. And for this political thing that, you know, that's all it was, is optics. It was a political stunt. Cost us an American life, you know, for no fucking reason. And that's the kind of thing where I'm like, dude, this is so stupid, man. Like, why are we even involved? Let them do their thing. I do think the reason I do think that we should sell them weapons, and I'm pseudo in support of Israel, is because there's actual American citizens that were killed and kidnapped during that whole ordeal, right? And I think, you know, actually they're talking about releasing, I think he's the last one on this next trade deal. And I think anytime there's an American that's been captured or something like that, or there's an attack and Americans are killed, I think we as a society have a responsibility to respond to that, because then it's like, hey, okay, maybe we shouldn't fuck with the Americans. Maybe we should fuck with like American interests. Yeah, you know what I'm saying? But I don't know. Again, it's another one of those conflicts that have been raging my entire life, where it's like, I don't care. I don't care about either side. You know, like, do your thing. You know, again, if we want to sell weapons to them, sure. But I don't think we should just be giving Israel or Ukraine just weapons for free. Does that make sense? I agree.
And the Israel-Gaza thing is, you know, dude, like, there's certain people that if you just take a kind of neutral, but hey, I don't like the fact that all those kids and women are dead position, then in short order, like, someone will call you an anti-Semite, and you're like, dude, no.
Are you talking about all the Palestinian, all the Palestinian women?
Yeah,
and kids?
Dude, it's crazy. Like, it's such a hot button item. And then now, like, if you look at like Twitter, for example, it's like half of the Twitter feed is like about people that hate Jews, and then Jews pushing back against people that hate. It's all about that, you know. And it's like the degree to which that's going on, you have all these like ridiculous influencer people that are like taking, you know, one side or the other. So you get these like high profile, like Candace Owens types who are just like on the internet, kind of like, maybe Hitler wasn't such a bad guy type of stuff, right?
Yeah.
It just feels like an op to me. It feels really weird.
Well,
I
think a lot of that is driven by money, because when they're on Twitter and they put out these crazy things that they know people are going to react to, every time someone views that tweet and react and like leaves a like, leaves comments and stuff, they get paid. So if I can get paid to say the most ridiculous things, and this is something that riles people up naturally and people will comment, then maybe it's almost like, hey, is it worth it to show my butthole to get $10 million?
Yeah,
is it worth it?
That.
Yeah, is it worth it to
say Hitler was cool?
Yeah, you know what I'm saying? I may not actually think that's a good idea, or I may kind of, hate myself a little on the inside for saying it, but the payoff is this, like, I don't know.
Yeah, that makes sense.
What do you think about this guy that's getting deported from Colombia?
So I don't know. I tried to look into it, and I still couldn't. I wanted to find out exactly what he said and whether it's just the case that he violated, some statute or law regarding his green card, and I couldn't figure it out. So all I could get was like the rhetoric from each side that, from the left, they're saying, oh, you guys are free speech absolutists till it comes to Israel, and now you're kicking people out. And I'm like, there's some validity to that. I think if he was in the streets advocating against Costa Rica, nobody would care. You know what I mean? This is specifically because the Israel, for not taking a side here, I'm just saying they have very powerful lobby. They have AIPAC, they have the ADL, they have a lot of power in our country. And so they're flexing their power there. And then the current administration is very sympathetic to Israel. They're all Zionists all the way down from Trump. Every single person, you will not find one person in Trump's cabinet, all those picks, every single one of them, without exception, is on the record saying, I am a committed Zionist. I give unconditional
What would you define a Zionist as?
A Zionist is somebody at the most basic the most basic definition is a Zionist is somebody that believes, this is what Zionists will tell you. A Zionist is just somebody that believes that the Jewish people should have their own state. Okay. But it's more than that in actual reality, because what it really means practically is that, you think that Israel should be able to do a bunch of things in support of that goal, to include like turn Gaza into rubble. You know what I mean? So like, do I think the Jewish people should have their own state? Sure, I guess. Like, again, it's like okay, they can have their own state. Like, it's not like I don't want them to have their own state. I just don't want them to have any power over my government. I don't want the country of Israel, not I'm talking about I'm talking about the country of Israel. I don't want them to have as much power as they do over my country. That's it. And so for that reason, I'm not a Zionist,
Mm-hmm.
But it's not like, no, the Jews should just wander the deserts endlessly. I don't want them to have a state, but every person in Trump's cabinet is on the record, pledging their support for Israel. And then, they don't break from that. Like they're pretty consistent in that. Now, and it's Trump got $100 million from Miriam Adelson. She's a Israel lobby person. Jared Kushner is Benjamin Netanyahu's godson. Most of Trump's kids are now Jewish by conversion. So, this just is what it is. Some people say that Trump's playing like 5D chess with Netanyahu and like he's got some move planned. We'll see. I'm getting to the point where like, dude, I honestly don't care. But even when you say you don't care, people get mad. They go, you don't care if the Jews have their own state? I'm like, okay, I think the Jews should have their own state so people don't try to Holocaust them or whatever the reason is, right? But it is a bit interesting. Like we tolerate stuff out of Israel that we wouldn't tolerate from other people, for sure. Dude, in a lot of ways, we say that it's not okay to have an ethno state. Like if I just started walking around saying I want to have like a white European ethno state, no one's gonna have any patience for that.
But that's not really a fair assessment of Israel, though, because I think it's like 20% of their population or even 20% of their government is Muslim.
But they are. It's a Jewish state. Like it's
a Jewish state, but it's not like they're like you can't.
Well, okay, so it can't through a democratic process become like an Arab state. You know what I mean? It's specifically a Jewish ethno state, which I don't have a problem with that. I'm just saying,
I think, but what my point, I guess, is that a lot of people are like, oh, they're all racist. They just want Jews in Israel and da 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 da. And it's like, yeah, I mean, you may say that, but the reality is that it's a pretty diverse culture.
I don't think they're racist. I don't think it's like that. I don't mean to say that. By ethno-state, I'm just describing it like what it technically is. I don't think that they're trying to like make it a place that only Jews can be. Because, like you said, there's all kinds of people there.
That's why I don't buy the genocide line, that people throw out there, because it's like, one, it just doesn't make sense, again, because of the diversity of their actual country, and two, when you talk about genocide in Gaza, if it is, it's like the worst ever, because they've literally gained population. It's not like they're losing population there.
Yeah. Yep, I agree. I think that what's going on in the interior of Israel and what's going on in Palestine are two separate things, but they're going to get, so it's like what they're getting right now is what guys like Netanyahu, it's not everybody in Israel. Israel's divided. There's plenty of people in Israel that are for a 2-state solution, and they've come close in negotiation a couple of times to like that kind of happening. But a lot of people don't know that Netanyahu's party, the Knesset, the like right-wing, hardliners in Israel, they supported financially and otherwise supported Hamas over the years, so that Hamas, and this is a matter of public record, like they admit this, they wanted Hamas in power and not the PLA, Palestinian, or the PA, Palestinian Authority, because the Palestinian Authority is pro 2-state solution. Hamas is like, no, let's kill all the Jews, right? Netanyahu and his guys are like, we have to have Hamas in there to get what we want ultimately, which is they want to have it out. They don't want to have a 2-state solution. Both Hamas and Israel want to have it out. Like they want to fight and see who's going to, be the only one type of thing. Whereas the 2-state solution people want a peaceful resolution. So it's a bit complicated because it's like, hey, like we do all the time. Like we keep creating our own, ISIS to go fight. Right. So this is like Israel is doing this with Hamas. And the monster kind of got out of their control at this point. But I think ultimately it's looking like I think Israel's going to get everything they want. They're going to get Trump, via Trump, with Trump's support, because he's made it very clear. Like they're going to get Gaza. They're going to do whatever they're going to do with those people. They're going to relocate. They're going to figure that out. But that will now it'll be like, and this is part of these guys like the IDF. They wear the Greater Israel patch, which is like half the Levant. Like it goes up into Syria. Like the outline of Israel on the IDF patch for their deployment to Gaza is the Greater Israel patch. So it's not like they don't have a biblical interpretation of what Israel is, and that extends well past the current boundaries. So yeah, I'm not taking a side. Like here's my side. I'm anti Hamas guys coming over in hang gliders and killing a bunch of people doing ecstasy at a rave. I'm anti that. And I'm anti killing women and children with no agency in Gaza. So at the volume that they've done it, I'm not buying the like, those were all human shields. It's all Hamas's fault. It's like, dude, like I know what I see with my eyes. And again, I'm not saying, dude, I'm just saying I'm anti whatever that is. Like whatever is resulting in all the like armless babies and shit, I'm anti that. Now, the retort to that is, well, it's just tough titty because this is what it takes to,
war.
Get one. Yeah, it's war. It's like, okay, fair enough. But I'm also anti-war. So.
I definitely don't believe the numbers that Hamas have put out about the amount of civilians that have been killed. I think we're getting straight propaganda from both sides. And depending on who you support, you believe that propaganda from that side and disbelieve the other side. I don't think, I think there are civilians obviously getting killed. I also think that there are teenage kids that are fighters that they're calling civilians.
Oh, for sure. I'm not even counting. Dude, that's why I just say like babies and women. Like, and even some of the women, dude, of course, like some of the women are doing logistics support for the Hamas, or they're actually fighting. Who knows? But like that's why I'm not taking a hard line like Israel's committing genocide, and I'm not playing that game, because that's the sifting that takes place online. Is like, what camp are you in? Are you in the Jake Shields, the Jews, it's always the Jews camp, or are you in the Ben Shapiro? I'm in none of those camps.
Like I said earlier about like New York Times and politics, like I like listening to some of Ben Shapiro's points, but when it comes to like Israel and stuff like that, I'm always like, okay, I'm going to double check whatever he's talking about there. His other like American political stuff, I think he has a lot of good points. I disagree with some of his, obviously some of his points, just like most people, you know, you don't agree with everybody and everything kind of deal. But I also think that like his bias is well known. So knowing that, you should always take whatever information he gives you that's in regards to that bias and fact check it with something else.
Dude,
you know, so
this is a real tough issue, especially I think for young people that are, you know, they're not armed to understand, like you just broke down, like how the you got to understand what people's bias are and approach stuff. But when you encounter, they call it the JQ, you know, the Jewish question online, because the Jewish question writ large, forget Palestine right now, like writ large, the Jewish question is, hey, is there are the Jews effectively trying to take over control over everything? And then the evidence for that people point to is like, hey, look how many Jewish people are in positions of power in media, government. They break it all down, like military industrial complex, corporations, right? So people start looking at things that are observably true, and then they start following these inferences. Like, well, if those people are there, they're there because they've conspired to be there and they're exercising control. And then here's AIPAC and all the money and all the lobby and all this shit. Well, in very short order, like you can very easily find a bunch of compelling information that's presented in a very compelling way that will radicalize you against Jews like that. Like it can happen very, very quickly. Like a otherwise reasonable person can very quickly come to the conclusion that it's the Jews. Like everything. And then what happens is you see them online, all of a sudden they become the scapegoat for everything. So is there too much pornography in the United States? It's the Jews. Well, don't you know the Jews own the pornography company? Oh, okay. Well, point to other problem. Open borders. Don't you know that the Jews have long been running these NGOs that have been, facilitating migration from sub-Saharan Africa into Europe? And then you can find that there's a case for that. So and that's why the Jews are always so freaked out. That's why like the ADL is so aggressive. Because
Isn't it weird though that that people, you're right, people will immediately, it's easy to fall into that train and like, oh, the Jews, they did all these things.
Yep.
But then we ignore like, well, Catholic charities also facilitate a lot of
that's right
illegal migration.
Well, you know what?
Is it the Catholics?
You know what they'll do? You know what they'll do? They'll find one Jewish person that's involved somewhere in the hierarchy of that charity. I've seen it online a million times. And so it creates this like both sides are like right, because not right completely, but like the ADL is like constantly running around like that Jonathan Greenblatt, and it's like everyone's trying to Holocaust us again and freaking out, and then plenty of evidence that that's true from the online discourse. And then the people in the online discourse are like, look, here, you want some evidence that the Jews control everything? As soon as Kanye started talking bad about the Jews, he wasn't a billionaire anymore. They took his money. And it's like, all right, so it's like,
well, it sounds like people like in most cases, unfortunately, like in our society, people are very binary. You're either with us or you're against us. There's no nuance.
That's right.
There's no like, maybe there's a little truth here and a little truth there, but your conspiracy is kind of fucked. You know what I'm saying?
And to me, the antidote for that stuff, because I don't want to be influenced, and I don't want to be manipulated into being like a Nazi. You know what I mean? But so my antidote because aside from just not being very interested in how many Jews are in what positions of power and what companies or whatever, my antidote is just take complete responsibility for, instead of trying to scapegoat whoever for these external problems. No, like again, it's like with the drugs, it's demand. Like it's our own weakness. If there's exploitable like inroads to weaken our society, pointing and saying that it's the Jews is not what you ought to be doing. What you ought to be doing is just tightening it up, fixing the problem. Fix your own house. You know what I mean? Like, there's no time to be scapegoating the Jews. Like, this is not.
Well, it's like people that hate billionaires. I saw some. It's like they're like, oh, yeah. I saw someone post something earlier today. They're like, just because Elon Musk is a billionaire, that doesn't mean, or Elon Musk being a billionaire isn't the reason why you're poor. And I was like,
right.
People want to be mad at him, like that's like it's his fault. It's like, and people look at something like that, like finance, and the finances like that, like it's one pie, and he's taking a huge majority of the pie, and it's like, no, there's no pie, it's not.
It's never occurred to me to be angry that someone's a billionaire. Like, yeah. I don't.
Like we mentioned earlier, you got to take agency. You have to take some, you have to look at yourself, just like in the Marine Corps, know yourself and seek self-improvement. If I look at myself and I go, man, I'm poor, but then I only do like 3 hours of work a day. I don't ever do anything to improve my station in life. I don't do anything to improve, my output or whatever. Then whose fault is it? It's easy to get online, like you said, and it's the Jews, it's the billionaires, it's the, pick your poison kind of deal. Where you should be going, what am I doing wrong here? What is there something I could be doing to improve my own situation? But a lot of people don't want to do that because they don't want to admit to themselves that they're not that they're fucking up, that they're not doing it right, that they're making missteps and continue to make missteps. So
and plus, like,
crazy,
all these things, even the things that I like point to, they're all like, so Musk, how many people is that guy employing? Like, he's not making those people poor, certainly.
That's another thing that people forget. And I love how when people come out and they're like, well, they should be running this business this way. They don't pay their employees enough for this. And I'm like, well, if you think there's a better way to do it, then start your own business, like
that's right.
Prove them wrong. Prove them that there's a better way to do it. But people don't do that, and there's always an excuse. Oh, I don't have the funds to start my own business. Oh, I don't have this. I can't do that. I can't, you're self-selecting, just like you saw in the military when you go through these special operations courses and stuff. People self-select. Like, I'm not going to go to MARSOC just because I don't even think I can make it, without even knowing what's involved with it. I'm not going to try out because of this. You're self-selecting. You're going, oh, I'll never have enough money to start my own business, or I can never work through the system to start my own business. Well, if that's how you feel, then yeah, you're right. You're never going to be able to do that thing. But if you passionately believe in something and you put in the work, then you probably could make it if you really tried,
Well, and I still believe that America is the best place for that. Like, it's still, like I said, there's still enough economic activity in this country right now that you can still do whatever. Like, yeah, of course, are there challenges, of course, but like, I don't think if I was like starting out in the world, pick any kind of thing you want to get into. Like, this is probably the best place for any entrepreneurial endeavor, or dude, like, the difference between a place that just has a bunch of economic activity and a place that doesn't is night and day. Like, we have it pretty good here still.
Oh, yeah.
It sucks because, and like, I'm partially responsible because I get pretty down on the government and stuff, but like, people are very sour on the country, like, people have
it's the cool thing to do, right? It's the cool thing to be disgruntled. Just like in the military, there was like, I remember on my way out, and a few years after I got out, the vibe felt like it was cool to be the shitbag. It was cool to be like, fuck these guys. And that's just kind of the mindset that some people take. And it's, I don't know, it's kind of dumb because it's self-defeating. And people that shit on the country, I mean, we've had, when you talk about entrepreneurs, we've had more foreign-born, self-made millionaires than any other country. This is actually a real country of opportunity. These people come over here from other countries that have lived in actual shitty countries. People talk smack about the U.S. They've never been to an actual like shithole country. Yeah. Some of these people come over here from these actual shithole countries. They understand the opportunity that they've been given, and they work hard and they become successful. And that's part of the problem is that not enough Americans have actually struggled. And that's
honestly, people are going to be better off to start somewhere like that.
People are going to take that the wrong way. Like, I struggle every day, this and that. Yeah. But when you look at it in perspective, like for someone like us that have been to other countries, like actual third world countries where, they're living in mud huts, they're shitting in holes. Like, there's no computer, there's no internet, there's barely even 24 hours of electricity, there's, if any at all. Then I look at people here and I'm like, no, you're not actually struggling. I know it's the hardest thing that you may have ever done personally, but just know that it could be way worse. And people don't want to hear that because it's obviously, if they're in a tough situation and it's the toughest situation they've personally ever been in, then it's going to be tough. But they don't want to hear it from someone like me where I'm like, it could be worse. Fuck you.
Yeah. It's not helpful. Yeah. It doesn't help. Yeah.
I just don't know what to do.
a little gratitude would go a long way with people. Like that's something I never had any of it until kind of recently, and just kind of like it's like some hippie shit, but it's like, if you can on a daily basis, like just take inventory and take stock of like the things that you are grateful for, the things that could be horrible and probably are horrible for other people. I read it somewhere and it like kind of sticks with me. It's like we all probably feel the same pressure, like to be doing more, to get more, to like kind of keep ascending this career or material goods ladder or whatever, that this trajectory that we're kind of always on. But there was a time in my life where I wouldn't have even been able to fathom like the level of like material comfort I have now. Like from my current perspective, I'm like, I could be doing more. I need more, bigger house, more shit, whatever. But there was a point in time where I would have been like flabbergasted to have the stuff I have now.
Yeah.
And not just have like material, but like this, the kind of life I'm living, Yeah.
No,
so these are the type of things.
I completely understand. So it's funny you say that, because I just thought of this. I just thought this to myself like a couple weeks ago. For the last, people that listen to the podcast probably have seen that I've kind of dropped off on releasing episodes like the last 6 or 8 months. And I'm like, I just got kind of burned out on it. I got kind of burned out on doing the podcast. I felt like I wasn't making much traction, and I'm looking at other podcasts. I'm looking at like Sean Ryan, who started a month after me, but he gets millions of views. And I'm like, man, what am I doing wrong? Like, is this not quality content? But then like a couple weeks ago, I was looking at my analytics and I'm like, I've had tens of thousands of people listen to this podcast this month. If I would have said to myself 4 years ago that 10,000 people are going to listen to your podcast in 1 month, I would have been ecstatic. But now I've kind of lost sight of that for a little while, because it's like it just doesn't feel like I'm growing like I should, or the results aren't like what I expected, but it does take people definitely should take a step back and go, man, if I would have, I don't know. I know exactly what you're saying, though, if that makes sense.
That makes perfect sense. That's a clear illustration of what I'm talking about. Like, you just started taking for granted the fact that tens of thousands of people listen to this stuff.
I remember when I used to be like, oh shit, someone listened to the podcast today. It was like, I got one download today. Sick. Now I'm getting downloads. People are downloading every day. That's crazy. I remember in my little 1-bedroom apartment up in Oceanside, like sitting there recording episodes and really hoping people would listen to them. And now it's like, I could not put out an episode for a month and I'll still get thousands of people listening to it. And I've kind of lost sight of like, what I really, I don't know.
Dude,
it's just crazy.
Like it seems just from like some of the, like I said, my interests have kind of strayed into all this kind of like debate weirdness, but like kind of watching some of these shows grow. I think from what I've observed, it's a grind. Like these are guys that I think the channels that grow, they're putting out so much content. It's like they're like streaming every day, and I think it takes like there's something about like us as consumers of shows, like we want it to be like constant. Like if I like your show, I want a new one every day.
Yeah.
And I feel that in myself too. Like I'm like the shows that I find myself kind of gravitating toward and watching regularly are the ones that are putting shit out all the time.
Yeah.
Even if I don't like it as much as one that's like maybe once every week or something like that, the guy that's doing it all the time, I'm watching it, so but I do not have it in me to grind like that with it. Like Cody and I are just basically yelling into the void. Totally understandable for like, the shit we say half the time. I have no, but like, dude, to what it would take and like how much little bandwidth I have after working and kids and shit. I respect people that, well, I guess if it was my only job, I'd be willing to do it, but that's a risk too, trying to like, okay, I'm going to be a content creator.
Yeah. And this is something I was thinking about. A guy I worked with yesterday, someone posted on Facebook that he was retiring from the Marines. And I'm like, man, people I served with are retiring. Like, was it a mistake for me to get out? I kind of question myself
Oh,
sometimes.
guys
like,
where your contemporaries are.
yeah.
Yeah.
I'm like, man, should I have stayed in? Because I did 12 years. I got out at 12 years, and everybody was like, "You're fucking dumb. You should do 8 more years." And I'm like, man, in the last 5 years, I've done 4 deployments or whatever it was. It was like, so what's the next 8 years gonna have in store for me? And yeah, I guess that was part of like what I was saying before about getting burned out, because I didn't feel like I was getting the results that I was hoping for. Not that I expect to like become rich or anything from the podcast, but I mean, I just wanted to, I don't know, I want to be set up so that like if I could have retired, I joined in 2006, so I could have retired next year. I would like to be making more money from something like this than I could be if I was retired. If I'm making at least what I would have been making from a retirement check, then I'll be like, it was worth it, right? Because I'm doing what I want and I didn't have to put in all that other bullshit. I don't think I'm going to be making as much as I would if I was retired, especially not, maybe eventually, but not next year.
Dude, you never know when this shit breaks with these channels, though, And the other thing about what you do, it's like, yeah, of course, it'd be nice to, make a bunch of money doing it. But the other thing that you're doing is you're putting on on the record people's stories from, a piece of our country's history and stuff. So like, that's cool. So it's almost like when a lot of times like these authors will write books and no one reads the book till like 15 years after they're dead. And then all of a sudden everyone in the world read the book and it's like, now he's Dostoevsky or something. Right.
Yeah.
And it's like, you never know. Like it's even if you don't make any money ultimately at it or something, you're still doing a thing that's useful.
Yeah, that's
like in comparison to just like us like babbling about like COVID or something. Like you're getting people on to tell their story, and I think that if nothing else, that's cool.
Yeah, that was why I started the show too, is because I was like, you know what, man, like being in the fire support community and having been at Anglico, being a JTAC and all that stuff, knowing pilots, knowing other JTACs. I was like, I just know so many people that have done so many crazy things that no one will ever know about. No one's going to come and write a book about, this captain that was a pilot for this platform, or this like sergeant that did 3 deployments as a JTAC, when he was asked to go do it. No one will ever know that. And including a lot of their families will never know because they never talk about it and stuff. And I think it's, I was on Reddit the other day and someone said something about, they're like, hey, if someone mentions that they're a veteran or ask if you're a veteran, do you talk about it? And all these people are like, I never tell anyone. I know. And I'm like, and my response was like, why? Because a couple things here. Like, one, the American public deserves to know what their military is doing. And you should, as a person that was in the military, be part of the explanation of that. This is what I did. This is what my job was. This is how it rolled. 2, I think it's important for, people complain that civilians don't understand veterans or they can't relate. And it's like, well, part of that is because you're not telling them anything. If you refuse to explain what it was like to be in the military, how can they ever understand what it was like to be in the military? So I think it's kind of our, kind of a responsibility for us to, maybe not share everything, but at least tell people what it was like so they have a real understanding of where their tax money's going, where their sons and daughters are being sent off to do and what they're going to go do and these kind of things. I think it's important. But anyways, yeah, it's tough, man. It's a tough world out there for us podcasters, especially I do all my stuff myself. I don't use StreamYard. I don't use any of those broadcast software. So all the edits are me. I take my video, my audio, your audio, and I go through. And when you see us cut scenes back and forth, that's me chopping it, going through manually. I don't use AI to go through and slice it up or anything. We're at almost 2.5 hours. I'm going to have at least 2.5 hours of editing because I'm going to rewatch this whole conversation and then cut it all up into pieces and stuff. Where I don't do a good job is probably, which is weird because I'm on social media so much, is that I don't put enough clips and stuff on social media. I have 200, almost 200. Yeah, I have almost 230 episodes, and I put some clips up, but I don't think I put enough up. And I think I would probably get more traction if I did, but I just don't have time.
I think clips, because I'm just based on like what I find myself responding to. Like I'm susceptible to clips. That'll get me to a good clip. Will get me to like, oh, let me check that guy's channel out for sure. And honestly, clips with the AI text, because a lot of times, like it's appropriate. It's an okay time to be looking at your phone, but it's not an okay time to be hearing it.
Mm-hmm.
So it's cool to be able to read what people are saying.
Oh,
I use that a lot.
I do like that too.
I use that a lot.
Yeah, I do that a lot. I listen. I hate it when I actually kind of hate it when they don't have the captions.
I'm spoiled on it now. I want to read it. Yeah.
Yeah. But yeah, man, it's
there's easy AIs that do that. So
I know I need to get more into it. I'm trying. So I guess my backing up to what I was talking about before is like, so for like 6 months or so, I was kind of burned out and almost not giving up on it, but just not caring anymore. You know, I had other priorities. I had to make money to survive. I'm in Southern California. I'm in San Diego. It's like the most expensive city in the country. And crazy, like the podcast makes a little bit of money, but not enough money to live in San Diego. So I really had to like pivot and start focusing on doing digital marketing work, search engine optimization, Google ads and stuff for companies and things like that. And it's hard to justify doing the podcast when it takes up so much time, but there's so much material return on it. Like you said, you know, 10, 15, 20, maybe even 100 years from now, how valuable are these interviews going to be, you know, for someone to be able to, some guy's great grandkid can pull up an interview that his great grandfather is talking about what he did in Afghanistan or something like that. You know, how valuable is that? So I don't know.
Yeah. I think it's weird.
Yeah, dude. What else do you want to cover? Anything else? I mean, we've talked about a lot.
I don't think so, man. We covered a lot.
Real quick, what do you think about the did you see that photo of the Chinese boats for the invasions where they have those like they're almost like piers?
Yeah, so I saw them and I'm interested in that kind of stuff, obviously. And so I asked Grok because I saw it on Twitter. And if you type, you know, if people know this, if you see something on there, you can go at Grok and then ask their AI any question about it. Like, is this real? You know, does that person really do that? That person just made a claim about Hitler. Is that accurate? And then Grok in short order will give you its best answer. Pretty useful. So I saw that picture and I'm like, man, is that real? So I asked at Grok and at Grok told me that while it's not 100% sure that it's AI, it can't find any other evidence anywhere on the internet that a ship like that has ever been produced or exists. And it's reasonably sure it's not real.
I just saw another image actually. OSINT, you know that page, OSINT Defender, I think is what it is.
Yeah.
They just released another image of that.
Okay, well,
and I think I saw something.
Grok's infallible.
I think I saw something too that said that the U.S. used to have something similar to that, not to that extent. For those that don't know what we're talking about, it looks like a boat pulled up, and what it does is it drops like 8 pylons from the ship, and it raises the ship out of the water to stabilize it, and they basically make like a bridge. It's like 2 or 3 ships connected by bridges so that they can run equipment onto the beach pretty quickly. To me, that looks like something that you would do after you've already established a beachhead and you've already kind of got a foot, you know, you're already there a little bit. That's not going to be first wave shit. Yeah.
But the other thing China's got is they have the ability to like nationalize their entire civilian maritime fleet. So they have a bunch of roll-on, roll-off ferries that are used for, you know, civilian commercial uses that on no notice are instantly turned into military transport.
Well, yeah, their fishing fleet is massive.
Yeah, their fishing fleet is this. Yeah.
And it's militarized. It's like one of those things where, like you said, they can call those dudes up, and those dudes just circle the earth, fucking scraping the ocean for all the fish.
They produce the fishing ships to certain military specs and have like certain comm gear on them and stuff that make them, you know, for that purpose. So it's one of the nice benefits of having like a communist government is like you can just tell people what to do.
Well, yeah, I mean, it's much easier for them to plan when you're like, hey, we have, you know, Xi Jinping is going to be a dictator and he's going to be here for the next 20 years. It's much easier to make a plan for the next 20 years, whereas in our system, we can only plan for the next 4 because now if a Democrat comes in, they could completely reverse everything that Trump does. And,
that's right.
You know, I think Trump actually the other day, they were talking about how it's a national security issue that we don't have the shipbuilding capabilities like we used to,
so
and they're really pushing that to increase our coverage.
And that's the industry I work in now. Basically going out to these suppliers and manufacturing plants that make certain parts and then trying to get them unstuck, figuring out what their issue is. The Navy has a lot of money to throw at that. It's just the problem is like we already talked about, it's just tough to make this stuff, but they estimate that China has 200x our shipbuilding capacity.
Yeah, I saw something. It was like 60% of shipbuilding capabilities in the world is Chinese, and then like number two is like South Korea or something like that.
The other issue is we're getting there, but we're slow to adopt additive manufacturing. So now we have the ability to basically 3D print in alloys, specialty metals now. But so we're in this like very slow process where they're like, it's this company that makes valves or something for a submarine wants to make it use additive manufacturing, and it takes them like a year to get approval from the Navy because it's a slow bureaucracy. In China, they have huge 100,000 square foot warehouses that are additive manufacturing mills where there's just a sea of machines printing in alloys 24 hours a day.
Yeah.
Churning them out. So China's ahead of us on additive. We need to get caught up.
What do they call those dark factories or something like that where they're completely automated?
Yeah, it's automated. So we got to get caught up. But there's like a lot of jobs. The Navy puts a lot of money. There's this thing called buildsubmarines.com. They like advertise at the Super Bowl and stuff. But part of the problem is like labor. They're trying to invigorate the manufacturing base by like getting young people interested in these trades like welding. These are good, like high paying jobs to do the kind of welding and assembly and stuff that it takes to build these submarines at these shipyards. But there's only certain places, like the shipyards are in several, locations. So it's like, you got to move there from wherever. But like if I was, dude, and I having toured a lot of these plants now, the shit is so cool. Like the machines, the CNC, I'd never really been around CNC machines before.
Mm-hmm.
They're fucking, I'm just like fascinated by them. I think they're cool as shit. Like if I'd have seen that when I was a teenager, there's a good chance I would have done that instead of going to Marines. Like all the shit that's going on in there, and you're building these cool submarines. Like I'm just impressed. I think it would be a great trajectory for a young person that wanted to get into right out of high school. They'll take a person. It takes a while to get the training and all the certs, but like you come out of the other side of that and you're building submarines for the Navy and like good jobs. Like in short order, you're like a 6-figure job.
Yeah, no,
like,
for
welding
sure.
And shit, so.
I know one of my buddies from Anglico who's been on the show, Andrew Tomorrow. His family has a thread grinding business, and
I've dealt. Where are they at?
Connecticut. I want to say
Connecticut. Yeah. Okay.
Thread. Yeah. Yeah, and he
do that on the CNC machines too, right?
Yeah. So it's high. It's like you're talking about. There's very like, it's very precise. Like what they're doing.
Tight tolerances.
Yeah, the tolerances are very precise, and it seems like a pretty cool job. I mean,
it's cool.
It's everybody's got their own thing. I think we're starting to reawaken from this like facade that you have to go work in a cubicle at some place, or you got to go work online, or and I think it really started when Mike Rowe started that dirty jobs thing like 20 years ago or whatever, and he kind of was like, hey, look, nobody's doing this job, look how much fun they're having, and they're making money. Some jobs look better than others, but
you're right, he's like the first person I can think of that was like, hey, this shit's cool.
You don't have to. That's what I was telling my kid. I was like, if you start welding if you started as a plumber as an apprentice when you're 18, you're probably going to be you're going to have your certifications and stuff by the time you're 22, 23. All your friends that go to college are also going to be graduating from college at 22 or 23, but they're going to be in debt and they're not going to be making that much money, whereas you're going to be making 6 figures and have no debt.
Plus, it's a system, dude. And again, I'm like so institutionalized from spending my life in the military, but like I like the idea of a system. Like, okay, you start out as an apprentice, you get your initial training, you're an apprentice plumber, work for some plumbing company, build up experience working under guys that have been doing it for 30 years or whatever. Learn the trade, develop clientele relationships with people in the area, and then at a certain point when you're ready, take a little risk, start your own small plumbing operation. And then if you're industrious, you do a good job for people, there's sky's the limit. Next thing you know, you got 10 plumbing trucks, and you're 35-year-old and you got $1 million a year plumbing business or something. It's happens. I meet like the HVAC dude in Wilmington that fixed my air conditioning. I was curious, got a similar story out of him. He was like kind of a young dude, and he's like, "Oh, it's my business." Because one time it was him, and another time it was somebody else that came. But I found out it was his business, and he just had a good business. Like he was doing well, and I'm like, that's cool. I can't fix the HVAC myself. Got to call this dude,
And those trades, you can go anywhere. I was like, and I
Yes.
told him, I was like, if you learn this here in California and San Diego, if you decide, hey, San Diego costs too much to live here, I want to move somewhere else. Well, there's plumbers everywhere. There may be some differences in some of their local ordinances and how they do stuff.
Codes or something.
Exactly. But you understand the concept of how to do it and how, like, you just have to update yourself on like the codes. But that skill will pay dividends throughout your life, so.
I agree, man. I'm stoked for your kid. That's cool that he found that on his own, without having to go to college first and
Well, I think he got real. I think he was like, me and his mom kept telling him like, hey, you're graduating in like 6 months, dude. Real life's about to happen. You need to start thinking about what you want to do. And he was kind of looking at different options. He didn't sound like he really wanted to go to school. Like he's kind of over school. So college didn't seem like it was in the cards for him. And I'm like, well, there's a million other things you can do. And that's what I try to tell everybody. Like, that job that you think of, or even if it's something wild that someone's doing it, someone has to do it. Like, don't self-select and say, well, that'll never be me. I could never be the person doing that. That's self-selecting. Like, why not? Why not me? You got to have that why not me kind of attitude. Yeah.
Yep. I agree, man. That's cool.
This has been a good conversation, Aren.
Man, I appreciate you having us on.
Give us where can everybody find your stuff?
Well, you can go to Stranger by the Hour on Patreon, or you can just go on Spotify or iTunes. We'll be a few episodes behind, but those are always free on there. Unfortunately, we got kicked off YouTube, so to get them hot off the press the day they come out, you got to be on the Patreon. But no need to do that. You can just go over to iTunes or something.
You got kicked off YouTube, huh?
Yeah, a long time ago during COVID. We were talking shit. Like we hadn't figured out like how to navigate there. If we had it all to do over again, we could have very easily talked about the things we want to talk about without being so explicit. Mm-hmm. I don't know. We just didn't have it figured out. So
are you guys on like Rumble or anything like that?
We did a little bit. Like we have a channel, but it didn't get any traction or anything. I think maybe we ought to reinvigorate that. We have a clips channel on YouTube that they haven't like figured out as us to kick us off yet. But I usually just send people to the audio because we always do a video one, but sometimes we'll show clips from the internet. But really, it's just you could just as easily listen to it.
I think most people listen to them anyways more than.
Well, that's the thing. Anytime I forget to put out the audio only version on Patreon, the people complain.
What the hell,
dude,
man?
Make the audio. Because they want to just have the audio, not the video going. So
yeah, for sure. Well, I really appreciate you coming on. I know we talked about a bunch of different random things. Everybody, you can check out my stuff, Former Action Guys, Former Action News on Instagram. Cramer Graphics is my website. Hit me up, and that's it, man. I really appreciate it.
Thanks, man.